Welcome to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name's Jared Mello, and I'm the Shepherd of Black Sheep. Today is going to be another current events video where I'm going to break down Candace Owens' episode on Piers Morgan. And honestly, I think Piers actually brought up a couple good questions in there. Candace did get Piers on a couple points as well, but ultimately, you can tell that Candace had a lot more smoke for Piers Morgan than she did in her meeting with Erika. So something to me doesn't add up with that. And maybe she's trying to pick up where she left off a little bit and say, okay, I got to pick up and be a little more gung ho like I was before. But you can't deny that something appears to be a little bit different now. But with Piers, she was very combative and she was very assertive in this interview and tried to do a lot of talking, but we're going to break it down and see how this compares and contrasts to her episode yesterday, because it was absolutely night and day different than it was yesterday. And there's going to be some good points that are brought up here that are going to give us the opportunity for some learning opportunities here. So let's jump in to see what they all have to say.
You're right. And that all these Egyptian planes were flying around tracking Charlie Kirk and Turning Point and Erika Kirk. Why? What is your theory?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, what's your theory then? You must have an idea.
My theory is that we should investigate everything strange that happened on that day so we can figure out what happened. The difference between me and you is that I have the courage to take the risks and ask the questions first, okay, before it's popular. You wait until it becomes popular and then you change your mind.
And that's a very good point by Candace. What is she talking about? Piers Morgan making every guest on his show say, do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn 10-7? And he did that for a long time. And then when he saw the sentiment changing and people being more against Israel, now all of a sudden Piers is okay with it. Oh, okay, yeah. Now I'm against Israel too. So Candace is very correct to call Piers Morgan out for that.
Stop.
And she made no request of you whatsoever, Erika Kirk, in 4.5 hours. Well, no matter what your opinion is about Candace Owens, and very few people don't seem to have one, she has a definite knack for commanding attention. Many people have been openly enraged by her theorizing on the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Many have been captivated nightly by what they see as either a thrilling real-time investigation into a colossal cover-up or a cynical strategy to exploit the most emotive and consequential news story of the year. Several of the Candace Owens claims are focused on Turning Point USA, the organization funded by Charlie Kirk and now run by his widow, Erika, who last week issued this firm request.
She has been one of the main peddlers of these conspiracies, and she is making a huge amount of money on it. She is building her business off of these lies. What do you want to say to her and the other people that are putting these lies out into the world right now?
Stop. That's it. That's all I have to say. Stop.
Well, shortly after that, Candace Owens was invited to a lengthy private meeting with Erika Kirk, which is now the catalyst for frenzied speculation that she may be having second thoughts about some of her theories. She's also, I should add, marking the release of her.
And here's another thing to take note of, right? Turning Point wanted Candace to go there in person. She declined, but she did offer to do the live stream with them. Turning Point didn't want that for some reason. But what did they do instead? Erika flies with Justin to Nashville to meet Candace in person. So what does that tell you? It makes it seem like Turning Point and Erika, they really wanted to be in person with her, regardless of where it was. So much so that they're willing to fly to Tennessee to do so. What does that tell you? It tells you that there might have been some sort of deal going on there. It tells you that they wanted to speak to her off camera and there was something important they wanted to tell her. That's what that tells you, in my opinion.
A new book, Make Him a Sandwich. And amid all of that, she joins me now for her first interview since the meeting with Erika Kirk. Candace Owens, welcome back to Uncensored.
It's good to be with you at the end of another year.
Yes, and what a year it's been, not least for you. It's fair to say your fame continues to rise, infamy, some would put it. But you're always a welcome guest on Uncensored. Let's get to this extraordinary meeting that you had with Erika Kirk. it came right after we saw her say in that CBS town hall, you should just stop with the conspiracy theories. So who approached who about you guys actually getting together?
I was approached by Turning Point after Blake Neff, who works on Charlie's show, sort of fumbled this invite. It was, I'd almost say it was a fake invite publicly. And then in the middle of the night said, oh, Candace is not able to be here tomorrow. And they never messaged me. And I think there was quite a bit of public backlash with how they went about it. It's just not the way that we try to set meetings. And so what happened after was they reached out.
I mean, and they called her on the fact that Candace said anytime, any place. That's basically what it was. But to Candace's credit, she offered to do the live stream, right? Don't forget that part either. Turning Point declined that.
Out to me, said Erika would agree to do a live stream, just the two of us. And then after Erika's PR blitz, they reached out again and said that they felt that it was better for us to meet one-on-one as opposed to us sitting down having Megyn Kelly moderate, which was the idea originally.
Right. And so where did you have your summit meeting?
At a hotel here in Nashville.
And a lot of your supporters, fans of your show, think that you may have been lured into a trap. Did anything while you were there make you think you were being lured into a trap?
I don't know that a lot of my fans think that I was being lured into a trap. I think ahead of time they had some concerns, obviously, because I think in general, after you see a public assassination and you start tracking so many lies that are happening, there's going to be an understandable amount of angst that people feel. And I certainly felt the angst as well. I've obviously been very clear that I am suspicious of some of the characters that are at Turning Point USA. So I totally understand why the public was concerned.
When you saw Erika, she was obviously angry about you in that CBS town hall. What was her demeanor like when you met her?
Well, I don't think that she thought she was angry in that. I think maybe that was the characterization from the public. I certainly thought she was angry as well. And she sort of clarified that she was a bit annoyed by the questioning, the way in which Barry had set up the question with the podcaster, Candace Owens, which I think was definitely being driven more by Barry Weiss's feelings towards me, long-running feelings towards me, than it was perhaps for the benefit of CBS and trying to pretend to be an impartial journalist.
And this is a little bit revisionist here. It did seem like Erika was more mad at Candace than she was at Barry in that moment. Now, granted, Barry is certainly not impartial by any means, but I think she was more mad at Candace at the time.
So I think she was frustrated by the line of questioning, is what she explained to me.
So how would you categorize the 4.5 hours? If you were looking at it in totality, what was the tone of the conversation? What do you think you both got out of it?
Well, for me, answers to the questions of trying to understand why there were so many Turning Point lies and why instead of people acknowledging that these are lies, I felt that there was this billion-dollar psychological operation to convince people that Candace is just crazy. These aren't lies. These are made up. And so I was very refreshed that they owned up to the lies. That was a great first step. And I think, what motivates that? Maybe because despite having what I would assume to be the best PR agents and crisis PR agents in the world, we're moving toward a different world where people don't really care. If you are friends with the people at, WME and CAA and what they can do for you, that sort of power is ineffectual in this day and age. And so I think they recognize that, and that the public simply doesn't believe the story that they've been fed, and the psychological operation to convince us not to believe our own eyes or to trust our common sense instincts has failed. Okay, and I think on their end, they got more clarity on how I figured out certain things, more clarity on why I am convinced that there are people that are inside of Turning Point that are dirty. And
again, what doesn't make sense to me is that Candace said yesterday, she said the thing Erika was the most upset about was that Candace told her audience to not give money to Turning Point. That doesn't add up. don't you think that the thing they would be the most upset about is that they were implicating the people at the top of Turning Point for betraying Charlie? If that's not true, don't you think that would be the thing they're the most upset about? That's what I would think. So that part's weird to me.
Was able to share more with them off record, and I think that they got more clarity in exchange.
Before we get into some of the sort of specifics, is there not a danger here? I've already seen it in some of the reaction from people that follow your show. Is there not a danger that in seeking to be the one that exposes the truth, and I don't know the truth about what happened to Charlie Kirk. I work on the assumption that this lone, twisted, weirdo Tyler Robinson killed him for whatever reason, and I suspect personally that is how this will play out. However, I have an open mind in the sense that we still don't really know what happened with President Kennedy.
Side note, Dan Bongino did resign as the head of the FBI today, as a side note.
His assassination. I found the attempted assassination of Donald Trump very odd in the way that that's been handled by the authorities and so on. I'm not naive. As a journalist of 40 years, I'm not naive enough to say every single thing you've been saying is obviously baloney, because I don't know. And we'll get to some of the more specific details. But is there not a danger, Candace, that by having a 4.5-hour private meeting, rather than doing it in public, that all you're really going to do, collectively actually, you and Erika Kirk, is fuel the conspiracy theories about what you may or may not have discussed in that meeting, what part of the stuff that you've been broadcasting on your show she agrees with and doesn't agree with, and so on. Is there not a danger this is the least transparent way of going about trying to get solutions here?
A great question by Piers. Let's see what Candace says.
Well, I'm a very transparent person, so my preference was to do it publicly, but I took the offer, obviously, to have any conversation, because if I hadn't done that, then I think everything I've been doing would have appeared disingenuous. Like, oh, Candace is pretending that she wants answers to her questions, but when she got this offer, she suddenly said she didn't want to go because it wasn't public. They would have felt like I was moving the goalpost. So I was willing to take anything. And from their viewpoint, they felt like after the CBS News and the Fox News hits that Erika did, it was... my understanding was that they felt that it was a good idea to bring the temperature down first by having us sit down and communicate. And that doesn't mean that they necessarily say, oh, well, that's it. Now we're not going to have any other public discussion. I'm hopeful they will. I think they should. I totally agree with you. More transparency, the better.
And again, that's kind of a non-answer. That's a non-answer because the big issue was yesterday on her show, she didn't act like they had 4.5 hours of conversation. It didn't seem like Candace was being completely transparent about everything that went down. They weren't talking about the things that her audience wanted to know about. So it just doesn't seem to click. It doesn't seem to add up to me.
Who else was in the meeting? Erika was there. Who else was there?
Justin Strife, who is the COO of Turning Point USA, and my husband was only there for a portion of it, and my cousin.
So there were no lawyers, for example?
No lawyers. But they did phone their lawyer because I asked the question. I was like, look, I'm open to being wrong, obviously. If there is something, which I think the media was kind of hinting at, that they had more, but they couldn't share it with the public, I said, I'm happy to keep my mouth shut. And I want to feel good walking out of here that there is something there. There is some sort of a smoking gun. And I will tell viewers just to be patient. And so they did call one of the lawyers working on this case, and it was not convincing at all. He said, in effect, all we have is what the public has seen. And
so the follow-up question with Candace should have been there when she's in front of them. Why are you so convinced of this? Why are you so convinced of this, even though your lawyer just said this? What's in it for you to make it seem like Tyler's definitely the one that's done it? Why? Why are you so convinced? Why are you going to move forward with this trial when it's not going to be a slam dunk conviction? That should have been the follow-up by Candace, but she didn't act like she even asked that question.
We won't know more because we're investigating and looking for more. And so that just made me go, why is everybody being so over the top and ridiculous and using words like the evidence is overwhelming? It was Tyler Robinson, when they don't have anything that's overwhelming. to show that they don't have a video of him taking the shot, which I think was something that I assumed, like, okay, there's all these cameras. Maybe they actually have that video and they're waiting for a moment to release that to the public. They don't have that. Or at least I can say Erika's side has not seen that. And the lawyer communicated to me that they would not have access to that until earliest would be May. That right now they're just investigating, just like we're doing back at home.
Okay, you said that your motive for going to the meeting was that you would be able to come out and tell the world Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk. So are you in a position to say that? Do you believe, as a consequence of your 4.5 hours with Erika, do you believe that it is now most likely that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk?
Absolutely not. I haven't seen one piece of compelling evidence that Tyler Robinson scaled the rooftops like Spider-Man on a college campus that he didn't go to, and fired one shot, a magic bullet shot, and killed Charlie Kirk.
And it makes you wonder, what did Erika say when Candace said that to her? Okay, we just disagree, agree to disagree. Now, the things with the bullet, I was watching Andrew Wilson break some of this down today too. And he's correct that there are other variables, the distance, the angle of the shot, when the bullet, was it a fresh bullet, old bullet? Did the bullet tumble in the air? All of these things can play a part too. We just don't know. We just don't know yet.
I have not seen one piece of compelling evidence. In fact, I've seen more compelling evidence to the contrary.
You've seen their vibrant ads illuminating billboards and train stations for many years. Now it's time you actually saw the show. Shen Yun is celebrating its 20th anniversary, a dazzling run which has seen iconic performances at iconic venues like the Kennedy Center, the London Coliseum, and the Sydney Opera House. Each season tours to more than 200 cities worldwide. You'll see classical Chinese dance, a live orchestra, and stunning animated. Who does Erika think killed her husband?
Well, I think that in her recent PR blitz, she sort of communicated that she trusted her team, and her lawyer was using kind of the same rhetoric that the media has been using, where, there's really, this is like, it's overwhelming. Maybe he didn't say the word overwhelming, but he was like, it's very clear, I think is what he said in particular. And then I pushed back and I said, what's clear? The affidavit? That's all you guys have? And I did tell him, if you would never be my lawyer, because it's just, a lawyer that's just kind of giving you adjectives, and I don't need a cheerleader. I need someone to be practical and to say, we don't have anything yet. I think the communication should be, we are hopeful that throughout this investigation, we are going to uncover more evidence that links Tyler Robinson to this crime. I do feel confident that he was involved in some capacity on that day. As I have said many times on my show, I was the one who broke the story that he was at the Dairy Queen throwing out clothes, a local Dairy Queen, throwing out clothes in a nearby cemetery. And so I do think he was involved, and multiple people were involved that day. And I think he did pick up clothes. I had communication with Lance's family. I had communication with Tyler Robinson's family. And for some reason, Lance is being protected, which I find to be very strange. His own family thinks he's guilty of more, and they find it weird that the feds kind of glossed over him, almost as though he was a Fed operative, like he was.
And so I would wonder again what Erika and Justin would say to this when Candace said this. Oh, okay. We just disagree. We disagree that there was no one else involved. We disagree that we think it's just Tyler. That's it. I guess so. That's what she's making it seem like.
Working on behalf of them. And, we've caught the feds have lied a lot. It's just a fact. Turning Point USA people have lied a lot. That is a fact, which they have agreed to. They said that these were mistakes, but they, whether a mistake or not, the public was lied to. So this obviously, matters deeply to me, and it's just absurd that people would think that I'm doing this for clicks. I know Charlie. I knew Charlie. Charlie and I are very close, and it has been one of the most disgusting things ever that people, first and foremost, tried to start this psychological operation that Charlie and I hadn't spoken since 2019. They've lied about virtually everything that I've said on my podcast. I'm not going to let this go. Okay. We don't live in a country that is the embodiment of democratic principles. If Charlie Kirk gets publicly executed and the media apparatus is doing everything they can to cover the tracks. I would say to cover the tracks by demanding that there is no further inquiry into what happened on that day. That is not.
And again, as I said yesterday, I don't doubt that Candace and Charlie were still friends before he died. I do question how close they really were, though, because as I said, Candace is married to Farmer and they have kids. And then Erika and Charlie are married. They have kids. How close are you going to be with opposite sex friends when you're married? I think you're colleagues. You're both in the same sphere, sure. But how close are you really? I don't know.
Not a country that I can get behind.
Let's get to some of the details, because it seems to me you've put up a lot of theories, but a lot of them don't seem to have a clear conclusion from you about what you actually think happened. I mean, you've been all over this now ever since Charlie was killed. What do you believe happened to him? Who do you think killed him?
So I can't tell you definitively who pulled the trigger. I'm not going to lie to audiences and just put something out there that's not real. But what I can say is I feel convinced that the feds were involved. I can tell you that. I think the feds were involved in staging a cover-up. I think Kash Patel knows what happened and did not happen on that day. I am convinced by me being told by people that are feds that he is not acting right and that he is not wanting to share any information. Just a couple of people are allowed to even see anything. A Fed told me that they can't even touch the Charlie Kirk file without risk of being fired, and that he's grown increasingly mad. The U.S. Marshals that were there when they were doing the quote unquote manhunt for 33 hours said that Kash Patel effectively sent them on a wild goose chase, which is what was signaled to the public when he said, "We got him," and it was actually the wrong person. And so it caused people to stop looking because they were convinced that they had the shooter. They felt that that was in order to allow the real perpetrators of the crimes to get away.
But that could just be the fog of the immediacy of these things. We've seen it at Brown University.
And that's a good point by Piers. That's a possibility that it could be that. It could be also a possibility that they just want to appear like they've caught the shooter quickly. That's another possibility. But then you also got to think, if Candace is correct, what were the motives? Why? Why are they doing it? Are they doing it to cover up something for Israel? Is it for something else? Motives matter in these things. You got to think, what would be their chess move to do this?
Exactly the same thing. They thought they had the killer. They thought they had the killer. It turned out to be the wrong person. Right? It doesn't mean there's any great conspiracy by the feds to cover anything up. And again, even if what you're saying is true, I don't know. Maybe you're right. If what you're saying is true, what is it they're covering up? You've so far intimated or inferred something weird involving Egyptian planes. So, what's that about? You've inferred perhaps Israeli involvement in some way. You've certainly inferred a lot of Turning Point USA involvement. That's a lot of people getting involved here in the murder of Charlie Kirk potentially. But what I'm really curious about is, given you've been all over all this and you've been airing all these theories, well, which one is it? It can't be all of these things. Is it somebody?
Well, of course,
is it someone at Turning Point USA? I mean, who do you actually believe was behind this?
Of course, it can be all of those things.
It's a fair question by Piers, but let's see what Candace says.
And what's really ironic here is that there's a clip of Charlie in the last months leading up to his death where he speaks about the JFK assassination. And he says that multiple countries were involved, multiple people were involved, the LBJ was involved, the feds were involved. And he's correct. That is what it means. When there is a conspiracy, there are multiple people that are involved. Of course, there's not one person on a grassy knoll who shot JFK.
Well, it might have been that.
There are people who had to agree to it. There had people who would have had to. The Dallas police were involved.
Candace,
I'm answering your question. I'm answering your question.
But my
You're
point
asking,
is,
why aren't you just going to point to one person? That to me, even that seems like a part of telling people not to believe their own gut. Obviously, for this to have been pulled off.
I mean, Candace doesn't want to go all the way and pull the trigger, so to speak, to actually give what she really thinks about it, because to do that would ruin some of the mystery as well. Like, she'll implicate, she'll make suggestions, but then she won't go all the way. And that's kind of what Piers wants her to do here, right? He wants to put her to something. And you can see Candace does not want to say something. And so she is going to filibuster here a little bit. And this is kind of how it's going to go for the rest of this.
there had to have been multiple people involved. There had to have been people at Turning Point that were complicit in having this happen. Now, who knows what their motivations are? Doesn't mean maybe this person's like, hey, I'm going to help you.
Hang on. Okay, let me stop you. Hang on. When you say obviously somebody at Turning Point, you are accusing right now people that worked with Charlie Kirk at the company he built, which is now run by his widow. You are directly accusing people in that company of being complicit in his murder, right?
I want to just be very clear connecting that dot. So I said that when there is a conspiracy, of course, there are going to be multiple people involved. So applying that same logic to JFK, right? Knowing, as I do, and as Charlie did believe that LBJ was involved, which then implicates the feds as having been involved, which then implicates the Dallas police station as being involved. I believe Israel was obviously involved, that they were the ones that wanted him dead for saying that what is now AIPAC should have to register under FARA. So there's motive. There are people that have to be involved on the ground that day. There are people that have to.
We're not talking about JFK. We're talking about Charlie Kirk. This is kind of like a deflection, but she's kind of trying to use it as an analogy, but
be willing to allow the perpetrators to get away. There has to be media that's complicit, and that's what literally Operation Mockingbird was. It was established.
But you know the problem.
To persuade the public.
Candace, here's the problem.
Well, hang on. It was established.
Yeah, but here's the problem with everything you're saying.
In this massive cover-up.
You keep saying, and this is where people think you're prone to endless conspiracy theories for whatever reason.
Okay.
Is you keep using the phrase they have to have been involved. So by that yardstick, what you're saying is with JFK's assassination, and we recently had a lot of the files released, which did not conclusively prove any of these things, right? Now, again, I don't know what happened to JFK, but the one possibility you've not ruled in is it was just as simple as Lee Harvey Oswald. It might have been. We don't know. Right, so when you say the media has to have been involved, Lyndon Johnson has to have been. But my problem is you're stating all these things as facts.
We can't do 63. It's such a nonsense to say this.
The fact that they're even talking about this is a problem in and of itself. It's not the point of why she's even here.
Lee Harvey Oswald.
You don't know that.
That's just such a nonsense. Like, again, no, I do know it was not Lee Harvey Oswald acting by himself. And then that required national security to lock down the files. And that required the feds to impart, the CIA to impart Operation Mockingbird to convince the public that, it was, you can't go against, there's a grieving widow. Don't look further into it. Don't believe your own eyes.
But let me just say, this is your, Candace,
it was a grand conspiracy that killed JFK.
Candace,
and I am going to say that confidently. And I just think we have to grow up. We have to grow up. We can't keep pretending Lee Harvey Oswald.
Again, all of this is a deflection because she doesn't want to answer the question. She doesn't want to make a firm stance on it because then it would actually make her have to put her money where her mouth is in a way, right? She makes a stand, says something. Now people are going to hold her to that. That's why Piers is doing it. Kind of slick for him to be doing that. But I think Candace knows that. And so she's trying to steer it away so that she can just continue doing what she's doing. Oh, implicate here, suggestion here, but then never take a firm stance about it.
JFK.
Fine.
We can't keep doing that.
That is your opinion. Today's show is sponsored by Oxford Natural, makers of the Optimum Day and Optimum Night all-natural supplements. Thousands of Brits and Americans are already taking them with incredible results. Optimum Day boosts your energy and supports weight loss throughout the day. It's an opinion.
No, that's a fact.
No, it's not a fact.
It's a fact.
It's not a fact.
It's a fact.
The whole reason there are still conspiracy theories about JFK's assassination is none of this is a fact. You are floating it as your theory.
Because the feds are never going to admit to their own crimes. That is the reason we're still discussing it.
That may be the case, but you can't prove that.
Yeah, well, I can prove common sense that Lee Harvey Oswald did not stand on a grassy knoll and assassinate a president. And LBJ, like Charlie says in that clip, which people should go pursue.
Yes, I know Charlie
all
said
of the
that.
weird things that happened that day that were
Lee Harvey was in the Texas Book Depository, not the grassy knoll.
Unusual, and LBJ decided not to ride that day. And then suddenly he reversed course on all of JFK's policies, and he was fighting AIPAC. Israel killed JFK. Now, going back to your point about Turning Point USA and the ridiculous idea that implicating, this is a $100 million organization. Common sense, if this was not even a high-profile political assassination, and this was just a guy who worked at a company that was $100 million, right? Common sense inquiry is, was there a financial motive for this person to be dead? Okay. This is like Sherlock Holmes 101. And this is what I mean when I say that the public no longer trusts the media because you're acting us to be stupid. And we don't want to do that. We actually don't want to pretend that we're clinical idiots who can't.
So she's framing it as in anyone who dares to have a different opinion doesn't have common sense and is just ridiculous. That's what she's saying here. But that's not really a point, though, either.
Assess things and go, oh, there could be a massive motive here to have Charlie dead, especially when it seems very strange that Bibi Netanyahu, when nobody even had a clue of what happened, this guy's doing the rounds on Fox News and saying, I didn't kill Charlie Kirk. That's kind of weird. Did you feel compelled to jump on to Piers Morgan's show and say, just so everybody knows, I didn't kill Charlie Kirk? Why would he say that?
So
Why was he so
involved
involved that somebody who's fighting a 97,000 front war?
Candace, I want to get to the reality of what you're actually saying. So when you say that somebody at Turning Point USA, Charlie's company, was complicit in his murder, who was?
I believe that there were multiple people at Turning Point who are, as I have said many times, my exact words are, they are engaged in a cover-up of what happened to Charlie on that day.
No, but who was involved in his murder?
I didn't say that they murdered Charlie.
You said that people at Turning Point were complicit in his murder.
No, my exact sentence that I said was that there were people at Turning Point who are engaged in a cover-up.
No, you didn't.
I believe that thoroughly.
Candace, you didn't say that.
Piers is correct. She didn't say that. She's implying that part of Turning Point was involved in this. She's kind of trying to backtrack it a little bit here, but that is what she said.
You said literally.
I did say that on my entire show.
You said there were people at Turning Point complicit in his murder.
Okay.
That's what you said.
When you and I were discussing, that's why I said, let's go back. I was applying the logic of a conspiracy to JFK.
And correct. Someone in the chat said he might be trying to get her sued by answering. Maybe it'd be a good defamation case if she answers, right? And that's another reason why she doesn't want to answer. She wants to keep it ambiguous, vague.
Said, okay, if JFK, you have people that are complicit. Of course, if you apply that logic, if there is a conspiracy, there's going to be multiple people that are going to be complicit by the time, in order for a large stage murder to happen.
You specifically said, you didn't say complicit in a cover-up. You said complicit in the murder. Because I said, who at Turning Point was involved in his murder? And
let me clarify for you. Okay, you can keep saying what I said, or you can listen to what I am saying.
Okay.
When I was using the analogy of JFK and we were connecting it, I was basically pushing back on you because you were suggesting that, all of these people being involved would be crazy. So I was applying the analogy of what happened to JFK. Well, you actually, if you go back and listen,
I don't know.
Suggesting that a conspiracy.
I said you don't know either. You're floating theories.
When we started talking about the JFK thing,
listen, let me make it clear.
Piers, I really think you're not holding on to your thoughts
Candace,
here correctly.
let me.
This is mild gaslighting here by Candace, honestly.
Let me spell out my thought very clearly.
When we started talking about JFK, the implication that you were making was that it was crazy to suggest that multiple people could have been involved at different levels. I was then connecting the dots and saying that in order for...
And this is just her kind of wasting time, I feel like. She's trying to run out the clock, get this hour over with. And the more she can kind of like talk about these other unrelated things, the better for her.
The JFK assassination happened. There had to have been tons of people that were complicit,
I understand.
right?
I heard what you said.
Maybe you're the person who takes the cameras down. Maybe you're the person that told him to drive that day. Maybe you're LBJ. So they're not all complicit in the murder, but they're all at different varying stages involved in the cover-up, right? So that's what a grand conspiracy actually is. And I do believe, so you don't have to go back and we don't have to go through it. I'm telling you what I think about Turning Point. I am very known for being honest about what I believe. I'm not exactly a person that you got to pull teeth on.
Sure.
I believe that there are people at Turning Point who are engaged in covering up what happened on that day.
But were any of them engaged in the planning of the murder of Charlie Kirk?
I wouldn't know how it was planned. Absolutely, I can't make that. I cannot confidently make that statement.
And I wonder how Erika and Justin there, if she said this to them, what did they say? Oh, yes. Never mind that, Candace. We're okay with you saying that. I doubt it. And maybe they did bring her or threaten her with defamation. Maybe they did.
Can say confidently that I know they're engaged in the cover-up because I've been investigating what happened on that day and what transpired thereafter. I've been clear. I've named those people on my show. I've said they are engaged in a cover up, and I've listed the lies. So you don't have to try to make something out of what I didn't say. I tell you what I think. It's already controversial. We don't need to get more controversial, okay? Do I think someone at Turning Point pulled the trigger? No. Obviously, I don't think someone at Turning Point pulled the trigger. We don't even know who did pull the trigger.
And that's big. I don't know if I've ever heard her say that before. She doesn't think anyone at Turning Point pulled the trigger. That's important to know.
Turning Point, did anybody at Turning Point, in your opinion, know that Charlie Kirk was going to be murdered?
There is specifically 2 people at Turning Point USA, and I have communicated that information to Erika and Justin Strife, that I would not be surprised if they had foreknowledge of Charlie Kirk being assassinated.
But do you have any evidence?
I'm not going to name. I am not going to name those people, okay? Because
I don't want to get sued for defamation.
It's not right for me to name those people until I know for a fact that they did.
Did you give the names Did you give the names to Erika?
Yes, so I absolutely did.
You gave the names to Erika of 2 employees, current employees at Turning Point, who you believe were involved in the preparation for the murder of Charlie Kirk.
And I will say, Piers is asking the right questions here about this, and he's getting Candace to backpedal a little bit and be on the defensive for some of the reasons we mentioned already, but let's see.
Say?
I told them that if I were in your shoes, these would be 2 employees that I would look further into. That's
and what evidence do you have that they had any prior knowledge of the murder?
Because I don't have concrete evidence is the reason why I'm not naming them. So I've been responsible.
You've got no evidence,
not saying,
but you're telling the widow that these 2 people may have been involved in the murder. But you see the problem.
Well, what the evidence for it is people that there was not concrete evidence. It's like you're trying to get me to say something that I never said and then asking me to defend it.
No, I'm asking what evidence you've got.
Let's actually go to, you're asking me privately, did I communicate to them that I think you should look further? That's called an investigation, Piers.
Now he's asking you, why do you think those 2 were involved? That's what he's asking you. So you should be able to answer that.
Okay. So what you're doing is a strategy of like, if somebody dies, you're saying to the police, you can't ask any questions about anybody unless you have concrete evidence. We're at the stage of investigation.
I'm not saying
yes,
that.
you can. And let me give people in the public the permission to do this. Follow your instinct. If you feel something is off, keep asking questions until you get concrete evidence. And when you have concrete evidence, you should name those people. I don't have the concrete evidence.
You have named other people.
I find their inconsistencies.
Okay. But you have named other people.
I'm trying to answer. Piers, you can't ask me questions. You can't ask me questions. Let me finish it. I have communicated to them that their inconsistencies make me uncomfortable. I have communicated to them that somebody else who is a third party gave me some information that I am not yet comfortable as I am vetting it, giving it to the public, because that's the responsible thing to do. These are private citizens. And that if I were in their shoes and had more access to information, I would go down that route, okay? Unless I am fully confident that they actually did have something to do, like here is the smoking gun, I'm not going to name those people. Okay. But the people I have named thus far are people that I believe are engaged in a cover-up. Like I said, hold me accountable for what I have said.
Let's talk about one of those people. Let's talk about one of those people, because the Turning Point producer, Blake Neff, wrote this in early December. Ever since Charlie's murder, Candace Owens has leveled a flood of allegations against people at Turning Point USA, people at Turning Point Action, and people who work for the show. She has made them against some of Charlie's closest friends and against some of his most dedicated employees. She suggested that Michael McCoy, Charlie's chief of staff, knew Charlie would be murdered, was happy that he died, and stayed silent because he was told he would be the next Charlie. Now, let's move then to, you said in your podcast that new information was given to you in your meeting with Erika Kirk about Mikey McCoy that's now satisfied you. On a video on the 27th of October, you devoted the whole episode to this guy and his supposedly strange behavior. I never said I
have information that satisfied me about Mikey McCoy.
So Candace, though, the issue was you acted like you were satisfied in the show yesterday. That's the point. Oh, you saw the call logs and you acted satiated about that. That's what Piers is mentioning here.
Well, I was going to clarify. Okay, well, you can clarify that in a moment. But let's hear what you said about Mikey McCoy before the meeting.
So we decided to slow this clip down, and we're going to watch this clip slow down so you can see that it is exactly 834 milliseconds from the time that you hear the shot. That is how long it takes for Mikey McCoy to put the phone to his ear. Now, why is that precise timing so important?
And again, what I'm mostly calling out here is not what Candace had said previously, more just the tone difference and the energy difference between her show yesterday and what she has and what she's bringing to Piers today. And then the fact that it just doesn't seem like she truly followed up on a lot of these questions. And again, the defamation part could explain a lot of this, right? But it just seems like there's a lot of things not being said. There's a lot of missing pieces right now, and we don't really know why.
Because there's no dialing. Mikey didn't have time to dial, okay? You can't dial and put your phone to an ear in 0.834 seconds.
Now, what was the new information that you got in your meeting with Erika about Mikey McCoy?
So I'm sorry your gotcha is not going too well, but I never then said, I am now satisfied that Mikey put the phone to his ear. What I presented to the public, it was what
I
Erika
didn't say
gave to
that.
me.
Sorry, just to clarify.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, well, you did say
No,
you have
inferred on your
satisfied.
podcast. Well, let me give you the chance to clarify.
Oh.
Piers. You inferred on your podcast after the meeting with Erika that you'd received new information about Mikey McCoy, which had changed your mind. Would that be the best way to categorize it, or changed some of your mind? No, I never said
that.
This is a good question by Piers. Let's see what Candace says.
Presented it. Well, the only thing that I clarified on my podcast, if that's what they're getting wrong, is that some people thought that he was using a nickname that was his middle name, and actually his real name is Michael, like first name Michael. Because I was like trying to find something and I was like, oh, maybe he's actually using his middle name. So that's what I clarified on my podcast.
And you would give
Not quite. No, you mentioned that you saw the call logs and you acted like it answered all of your questions. That's what you said in the show. She's denying that right now. She's acting like that didn't happen. She's playing dumb.
call logs, is that right?
Presented.
You were showing call logs? You were showing call logs?
They gave me a printout of Mikey's call logs and I gave it to the public. That's it. I mean, they're saying this, and then the public obviously comes back and says,
So do you believe Mikey McCoy had any prior knowledge of Charlie's murder?
I can't say that he had prior knowledge of the murder unless I have something concrete. I can't say anything about prior knowledge. What I can say is what happened on that day. Mikey's behavior is weird on that day. I find it weird, like I said in the podcast yesterday, that what has been communicated to the public is like he called Erika instantly. First thing he did was call Erika instantly. And that's actually the call logs show that he didn't call Erika instantly.
But what are you suggesting about this guy?
He called his wife instantly, and then he had 3 ways.
You know, when you got a massive platform,
and then showing
Candace,
his call log showed that Blake Neff actually didn't tell the truth about what happened on that day.
But here's the problem, Candace. You have a massive platform, as you know. Millions and millions of people hang on your every word. When you devote a large part of an entire episode to the strange behavior of Charlie Kirk's chief of staff, you are putting a target on the guy's back. You're inferring it has something to do with this, or something to do with some cover-up, or whatever it is you're inferring. You know what you're doing when you do that. When you saw Erika Kirk, did you say to her that you believed there's something suspicious about Michael McCoy? Was she able to explain to you why there isn't? Or does she share your view that he is somehow complicit in this in some way?
Now, another note about Piers. These are some good questions he's asking her. But this also shows you how ridiculous and in the tank Piers is on other episodes. When he wants to be, he can be a good, tough interviewer, but other times he is absolutely not, depending on the topic and depending on who's there. So that's another just side note about Piers Morgan.
Well, we actually dedicated more time to speaking about his father, who I think it's strange to me that man calls himself a pastor. I communicated fully that everything about that man makes my skin crawl. I think he's a bad person. I think he's involved with bad people. And this is obviously Mikey's his son. And, I asked a bit about Rob McCoy and Mikey McCoy's relationship. I would just like to be clear. I am not going to be emotionally conditioned to believe that asking questions when we aren't getting any answers is the crime itself. The crime was when Charlie got shot in the neck. So,
but you've already said, you've already said though.
Now, a question would also be, people were saying about Candace might be afraid of getting sued for defamation. Since when has lawsuits ever scared her? I mean, the Macrones lawsuit, many other lawsuits out there, they didn't seem to stop her. Or maybe they did. Maybe they did because she hasn't been talking as much about the Macrones. But they're going to bring it up here in a minute.
The easiest way to remove the easiest way. Let me finish. You can't ask me questions. Not let me finish.
You're contradicting what you've just said to me.
But you have to.
You said to me earlier,
what did I contradict?
You said you gave 2 names of people in the Turning Point organization that you believe are complicit in some way. You gave those names, but you wouldn't name them because it wouldn't be right to do that. But you did name this guy, Mikey McCoy, who was the chief of staff.
Because his actions are strange. You're 2 different things. I really, Piers, I think you're having trouble holding on to 2 buckets of thought here, okay? You said, in regards to someone that was complicit in murder, that is a very serious allegation. I gave them names of people that would not surprise me if they did have foreknowledge of Charlie Kirk's murder. You are now shifting gears and you're asking me about Mikey McCoy and why I am raising red flags about his behavior on that day. Because I believe his behavior on that day was weird. I think it's painfully obvious.
So do you believe?
So what I wonder though is that should be an easy answer. Just say, yeah, I thought his behavior was weird. But Candace seems to be getting worked up about it for some reason and getting a little bit defensive. I'm not sure why.
I don't know people that don't duck when a shot comes down.
Complicit?
So I'm pointing. I'm sorry that I have eyes, and I am agreeing with the public that Mikey McCoy's behavior was weird on that day. Okay, these are 2 different things. Now, if I'm going to make the an assertion that somebody had something to do with planning this murder, I better be damn sure. And I need, if I say that on my podcast, right? That's all I'm saying. I had never made that claim that Mikey McCoy planned Charlie Kirk's assassination.
No, I think.
And again, her not being like dead set on giving an answer, it allows her to keep on making shows. She can string people along, breadcrumb them some more, get another month or 2 out of this whole thing. And what's happening in the background? Like I said, Dan Bongino, director of the FBI, steps down today. People thought Tucker Carlson reported that he thought that Trump's going to announce a war with Venezuela, but that didn't happen, actually. Instead, Trump was just talking about how great things are. Another thing to note, they are considering fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction now. And what does that sound like? Exactly like Iraq, exactly like the early 2000s and Bush and Cheney. That's not a coincidence either. Ironically, I think they actually have a better case for considering fentanyl a weapon of mass destruction than the Bush administration did for Iraq having weapons of mass destruction. But either way, that's not a good justification to go to war with Venezuela, in my opinion. They want the oil. That's what it's all about. They want the oil. They'll say it's not the point, but it is the point.
Like a lot of the claims you're making, it's difficult to work out what you're actually claiming. You're throwing a lot of mud in the air, including people's names, which immediately then has millions of people chasing after these guys on social media and thinking,
I'm sorry they get caught lying. Like, I'm sorry, what is this? This is like the public is actually being abused, okay? Let's stop pretending that the victim
are they, or do you just
Rob
want them
McCoy.
To think they are?
No, the public is being abused because you're basically saying, stop noticing that people at Turning Point USA are lying.
No,
How dare Candace and the public know? Yes, you are.
No.
How dare Candace?
But when there's an emphatic repudiation of what you're saying.
If Mikey lies and Rob McCoy lies and Blake Neff lies, and yes, all of these people have lied on record after the assassination. And the public goes, hey, that's kind of a weird lie. You're like, how dare you put a target on their back by noticing that they're lying? I mean,
that's kind of a mischaracterization of what Piers has done. He's trying to get her to clarify. Candace doesn't really want to clarify, but she should just owned, yeah, Mikey's behavior was weird. The end. And I'm going to question the people that are acting weird. There should be nothing wrong with that. And then leave it at that.
What weird psychological operation is this?
Do you believe?
Don't lie.
Okay, but do you believe Erika Kirk has been lying about it?
No, I have been
you're almost speechless.
Explicit on my show when people were saying, why aren't you attacking Erika Kirk? I said, because Erika Kirk has not lied. If to the extent that she lies, I will call it out. And that is why I did call out when she lied. Okay. When she said Charlie Kirk never received any text messages the night before.
And again, she didn't say this was a lie yesterday. She had said more like, oh, it was a mistake because Erika didn't realize the Telegram messages and Signal messages were there. That's how Candace framed it yesterday. But now she's back to framing it as no, she knew, and it was more of a lie.
Saying that he was worried about that he was going to get murdered tomorrow. I instantly said, well, here we have it. That's a lie. He definitively did send out text messages to both Dan Flood and Andrew Kolba. And when we met in person, she clarified that, okay, yes, that's real. And we didn't know until you said it because he was using a different app and she was checking his iMessages. So to me, if you lie, you're going to make an enemy of me. Just don't lie. How about that basic requirement to say to people, don't lie about what happened on that day. Don't lie about what you did on that day, because that's the first clue to investigators that that person should be looked at further.
All
Again,
right.
And this is true. Candace is correct about this. Now, but also to note, what Candace likes to also do is she'll give the least charitable explanation to everything. Because why? That makes it more entertaining. It makes it more interesting. It's great for views. But you could also be giving people the most charitable interpretation. But if you were to do that, not nearly as entertaining, not nearly as exciting, not nearly as many clicks.
It's common sense.
Okay, let's move to something else Blake Neff said. He said Candace has made other stranger allegations involving French paratroopers in maroon shirts, Egyptian Air Force planes flying out of Provo, Utah, and potential underground assassins traveling through unseen tunnels. At one point in early November, she started wildly throwing suspicion on members of Utah Valley's soccer team for wearing hoodies. I could go on. There's always something new coming up. None of it ever pans out because from the start, there's been nothing there. What do you say to that?
He's lying. And that's the reason why Blake Neff is a suspicious character. I mean, him saying that I pointed to a soccer UVU person is complete fiction. I never had discussed that person on my show. Somebody was asking for a clearer photo of the person on X, and I shared it. No suspicion. Never said this person had anything to do with anything. I never covered him as a suspect on my show of anything at all. Didn't ask for more information on this person. That kid instantly responded and said, oh, those are our school colors. And that was it. And Turning Point tried to turn it into a thing. Why are you doing that? Regarding the Egyptian planes, that's a fact. Why are you saying she said that there was a military Egyptian plane on the ground that day? There was. In fact, there were two. So why are you pretending that that's like a weird thing to notice? And that is why people have been flagged about these planes.
Piers is asking her about the connection between it, and she's acting like she doesn't understand the question.
Let me ask you about the planes.
I'm never allowed to answer a single question that you say in entirety before you move on to the next question.
You can't just keep talking ad infinitum. I'm allowed to ask you another question.
No, it's called answering. You just...
And again, I do actually think Piers is correct here. Like, he's trying to get to the follow-up to narrow it down, because Candace can go off, and she'll go off and off and off, and if you just let her go, you never know where that will wind up. So he's trying to narrow the focus, but Candace doesn't really like that very much.
Read an entire statement of multiple points of Blake's. I got to the second point, and you're like, let me ask you a question.
No, I want to ask you. No,
Piers, you already asked me a question. I'm trying to answer the question that you asked.
No, I want to ask you a follow-up specifically about the Egyptian planes, given you've now addressed it, which is, where is the evidence that any of these Egyptian planes were tracking Erika Kirk?
I am going to be publishing the full document, because there's not even just 2 planes. There's actually 4 planes that have been flying in, and I should be more thorough, because I realize that the spreadsheet I posted, people,
Kirk.
not that, can I just please, without you cutting me off, answer one thing? Okay, thank you. These Egyptian planes, more broadly speaking, now that we have gone deeper onto the planes, recognizing that the reaction to them is not normal, what we can say is that these Egyptian planes are tied to Israel. They've been flying in and out of Israel with their transponder off for years. But regarding the Turning Point USA picture, more broadly speaking, Turning Point USA faith, okay? Obviously, Erika has been involved in a lot of the church stuff. It's not specifically tracking just Erika. It's Turning Point faith events. Broadly speaking, I gave that information as well. I told Justin Strife and Erika, I'm happy to give you this color-coded spreadsheet. There's no question there's a correlation here between Turning Point USA faith in particular, which, by the way, from the beginning of this, I've said something is wrong with this faith contingent, especially because Rob McCoy for a while was heading up that department, and he makes my skin crawl. And so, yeah, I have the evidence for that. And we're going to actually publish it on our website.
Right,
so there can be no question, which I should have done from the very beginning.
But let me ask you.
Showing that these planes were tracking Charlie at various times. There where Erika is, various times there where Rob McCoy is. But the consistent thread here is faith events, like Kingdom to the Capitol tour.
Assuming you're right, and I don't know, but I know Erika Kirk, when asked about this, said on CBS, if you want to go through my flight log, go right ahead. It's very boring. You, Candace, say I was here on this date. I have a photo on my phone to prove I was actually in hospital having contractions. So that's one thing she's directly repudiated. But let's assume for a moment you're right, and that all these Egyptian planes were flying around tracking Charlie Kirk and Turning Point, Faith and Erika Kirk. Why? What is your theory?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, what's your theory then? You must have an idea.
My theory is that we should investigate everything strange that happened on that day so we can figure out what happened.
That's a non-answer. I mean, this is what makes me think more of the grifting lines with some of this. Why is she bringing it up? Just to lead the audience on with something, breadcrumb them, get them interested about something, to make it think, what? Oh, Israel for sure, or what? What is it? But she doesn't want to answer that, of course, because that would kind of ruin the game. It would ruin the game. And this is why I think a lot of this is just theater. A lot of this is theater and a distraction. It's Bismarck, as they would say.
Are you suggesting
Why is everybody
Egypt?
why are we pretending that we don't know why we ask questions? Like, why? Like, you're a journalist.
But you
know
have a
what this
theory.
is. You're like, what's going on? What's
What's
going
your
on? Why do
theory?
you want to know why these planes were tracking Charlie? Well, my theory is that we are being sold absolute Fed slop. The media is doing their Operation Mockingbird Part 2 scenario by telling us, well, unless you absolutely have a conclusion, you can't even ask the question. Yes, we very well
But it may be,
can.
Candace.
Keep asking consistent questions until we get a clarified explanation for what happened on that day. And right now, we have nothing, okay? And that is the reason why people are watching my show, because I'm the only one not treating them like they're absolute idiots who don't have two eyes and who believe in magic bully theory and who understand that Egyptian planes should not have been tracking Charlie even 3 times this year would be an anomaly.
And this is the game, though, right? Having actual opinions and hypotheses is way different than just asking questions. You can operate in the shadows when you're just asking questions. You can lead people on, and you can get them tuned in, breadcrumb them a little bit, but actually come up with an opinion or a theory, that's completely different. Candace does not like that as much.
Okay? They've been tracking him. We don't know where it's going to end, but we are going to keep asking questions until we get clear answers.
Candace, it may be that the person in the media spewing bullshit to the public is you.
No, nice try. It's not. It's you by saying, why are you asking questions? Don't you worry about Mikey's feelings? Everyone knows what this is. And like I said, because we have the example, the concrete example of after JFK's assassination, the media members quite literally being put on the payroll of the CIA, we have a historical example that we can look at and go, we're not doing that again. Doesn't matter how many times you keep telling the public that I'm spewing bullshit. It is only because there has not been anything that has come out of this investigation that makes any sense that the public is not listening to. I am sorry to say this, Piers, people like you. And what I love about you and I sitting down is that this exact same time last year, you were doing the same weird questioning and making all these things when I said that they were committing a Holocaust against the Gazans, and then you changed your mind.
Actually,
Piers,
this time,
I'll see you next year when you change your mind again, and we have more information about what happened, and you realize that the difference between me and you is that I have the courage to take the risks and ask the questions first, okay, before it's popular. You wait until it becomes popular, and then...
And this is true. Candace is correct about this. That's what Piers does. Piers did not call out Israel for a long time. He was always making every guest jump through his hoops. Do you condemn Hamas? Do you admit 10/7 was terrible? And so Candace is correct here.
You change your mind.
You may remember that one of your courageous moves was to repeatedly tell the world that Brigitte Macron is a man. As you now know,
and she is.
As you now know, we had a $300,000 bet to charity about this because she's a woman.
Yes,
is my view.
She's not a woman.
Well, we're going to find out. Is the point, because it's going to court. They're suing you, and when she proves, as she will, that she's a woman, because it's very easy to prove, and you lose that case, then
so easy that she refuses to do it for years.
But then it will become more obvious to people that. Look, I think you're a brilliant operator at what you do. That's, I like you personally. You know that, right? None of this is personal for me about you at all. I just have watched him last year from Brigitte Macron now into the Charlie Kirk story. I think you've developed a modus operandi, which, to put it politely, is you flying what we would call in the world of journalism kites and just seeing what can cause the most merry hell, therefore get you the biggest audience, therefore make you the most amount of money. And people...
That's a fair theory by Piers, actually.
As you know, you've been widely attacked now by a lot of people who say that you're just a ghoul, a vulture. You're doing this deliberately. You're inventing things or just flying ludicrous conspiracy theories to make money. Now, again, Candace, I don't know that you are, but I do know.
Celebrity.
Can you not interrupt me?
I do think it's pretty rich. It's pretty rich coming from you is all I'm going to say. That's me putting it very nicely, given your background, your career, your celebrity involvement, the Princess Diana. Wrong messenger is what I'll say right off the top. Okay. Wrong messenger.
Wrong messenger ad hominem, though. So he can be right with what he says. Who cares what the messenger is, who the messenger is?
What you are mistaking, or I guess we're not even mistaking because you know what this is. You're talking about power versus the people. And you are always on the side of power first. You're on the side of the Israelis. It's so horrible. And, oh, I'm going to pretend I don't see tens of thousands of Gazans dying.
I've actually been very critical of the Israelis, as you know, in the last year.
Everybody
I've actually been very critical of the Israeli government.
Penis, okay? It's very easy to present photos of 30 years of your life. Brigitte keeps teasing, oh, I'm Brigitte, nobody asked you for a blood test. We asked you for some photos and you refused to do it. And everybody knows that Charlie Kirk was not shot by Tyler Robinson on a rooftop. I am sorry that in this day and age, there seems to be such a shortage of testosterone that a woman has to be the person that states the obvious, right? I invite you to join me, and I know that you will by the end of next year, because they're not going to get away with what they did to my friend Charlie Kirk. And I am not going to change my mind, least of all when I am being called names by someone who has quite a year back.
And honestly, though, I kind of think Candace is running out of time with this too, because like I said, I think the high water mark was yesterday or the day before. And it's like, okay, pretty soon there's going to have to be something, or it's going to start fading. Social media attention span is super, super like freaking short. So what's going to happen with it? I think she has to come up with something soon, or she risks people kind of losing interest a little bit.
Background and experience in doing things because it's lucrative and not always because it's sensitive.
Sure, you can call me a hypocrite as much as you want. I don't care. It's fine. I'm just simply saying what other people have been saying about you. I didn't say I felt that.
Thank you.
I said
I'll let you know what people are saying about you too. I'll keep you
I
posted
read
on
it
people
all,
are saying
like
about
you. I read it all the time. But I would say that, like I said at the start of this interview, I don't know whether any of the things you're saying are true or not. I just do know you're saying a huge amount of stuff. It's making you very wealthy. You're getting millions and millions of people coming in, which by the way,
what is this idea that's making me very wealthy? Can you actually explain that slowly?
Yes, I'm going to explain it to you slowly, because I had a huge...
Candace can be so antagonistic when she wants to be.
Run in, for example.
This is just like a talking point.
No, I'm going to explain exactly what I mean. When Sandy Hook happened, and Alex Jones began weaponizing the Sandy Hook tragedy and weaponizing the grief of the poor parents who'd lost their children. And I began to attack him in public. And then eventually there was a court case, and it turned out he'd been spewing deliberate lies, and that every time he spewed them, they found he made hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in the immediate aftermath of spewing the repeated lies that it was all staged and the families were actors and so on, which he knew to be lies. And he made himself extremely rich and ended up with $1 billion defamation finding against him because he'd been deliberately weaponizing people's grief. And the charge...
Yeah, I'm asking you to explain the actual financial metrics. How was he making money?
I'm explaining to you the analogy, which is there are, as you know, right now, a lot of people, from Tim Pool to the New York Post to others, who've come out very stridently in the last week, and say that's exactly what you've been doing with Erika Kirk.
Yeah, but you haven't answered the question. So this is just made up. As I said, this is just all fluff. You're suggesting that I'm making money. Did I sign a new advertiser? Are we reading more? Are we reading more ads? Do we put this somewhere else? Do we sign
the more
a book
views
deal
you get on YouTube, the more money you make.
Did I sell a T-shirt? Okay, but like, come on now, Piers. Money on YouTube? Are you kidding me? I was already in a top 10 podcast globally before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And if you think that I would want my friend to be assassinated so I could go from being in the top 5 to being number 1, you're out of your mind.
No,
okay,
I'm telling you,
it's so disrespectful. But like the point is that everyone who is saying that I'm making more money cannot say how I'm making more money because it's just not true. Okay, so you're like, oh, she got a.
And it seems like Candace is getting defensive about this point for no reason. Like clearly, you're getting a lot of attention and traction. Like, okay, just own that. Like you're doing very well on YouTube. But instead she gets defensive and makes me wonder.
Bump in viewership talking about
Charlie, your YouTube numbers
everyone in the world because it was a public assassination.
And then
it went up in the weeks following, Candace, and it went back to normal.
Candace, are your YouTube numbers up since you've been doing the Charlie Kirk investigations?
What I am saying to you is that this is the exact same argument you guys had about Brigitte. So it can't, and then the same exact same
but I think you were
argument
lying about Brigitte.
About the Blake Lively thing. Okay, but like, what about the Blake Lively thing? So you can't keep saying that, oh, she's always in the top 10 because she's talking about something. Or this is my podcast.
She's talking about the hot topics, and it helps. It is what it is. And she should probably just own it. Just own it and say, yeah, I'm talking about the things that people want to hear about. Sue me. Like, who cares? This is what I'm doing.
It's me. It's just me. People enjoy my podcast because I don't treat them like they're idiots. I don't treat them like they should accept that Brigitte Macron just can't present one photo of herself raising her kids across 30 years. It's just too much to ask.
Macron
oh my gosh, it's ridiculous.
Prove...
How dare you? It's such an intrusion of privacy. She'd rather file a transatlantic lawsuit than to just produce photos and put all of this to bed. That's the difference between you and I. So now there's this lie, this repeat lie from Kamala Chronicles, which we did looking into Kamala's background because it was relevant to the election cycle. Then we did the Blake Lively lawsuit, and they said, oh, she's trying to change her brand. That's the only reason her numbers are up. Then we went to Brigitte, which I lost, by the way. I had to get a whole career change when I first covered that story. So joke's on me if I'm doing this to make money, but I was willing to be fired to tell the truth. And then
that's disingenuous. She's doing way better now than she was anywhere else.
All about Brigitte. And now we've arrived at Charlie Kirk. I feel like there's something about that actually is just people not being willing to admit that what people appreciate about me and why they keep coming back is that I'm willing to take risks to tell the truth.
No, I think it's don't get me wrong.
I was already sold out on ads at the end of the year because our podcast was successul. Yeah, I have not sold a t-shirt, nothing with his name on it. It's just me.
Candace, the reason I told the Alex Jones story is he did incredibly well out of Sandy Hook with his investigations. But as was established in the court case against him, brought by the families eventually, and I think we're going to see the same thing with Brigitte Macron and you, is that he was weaponizing deliberate lies for money. And I think you
Brigitte
did that.
Macron has a penis. I really want to know that.
Macron does not have a penis.
Brigitte Macron has a penis.
I'm curious to see the exciting conclusion to this part.
Doesn't.
I'm sorry.
She had 3 children.
Did she get it removed?
She had 3 children.
Yeah, you can have adoptive children. You can call somebody, but Brigitte Macron was born a dude named Jean-Michel Trogneau. Well, and I just feel, I want you to know that. I want you to know that Brigitte Macron probably stands peeing up. Probably pees standing up is what I want you to know.
The beauty is we have a big bet.
I think Brigitte
we have a big bet, and we're going to find out because it's going to court. And, you know, you will lose that court case. I think you know you will.
Yeah. I am not going to lose a court case because Brigitte is presenting evidence that Brigitte was born a woman, because that's never even been offered. That's just their PR coming after and saying these things. Nobody believes that Brigitte Macron is just unable to present any pictures. Nobody's asking for blood.
All right, well, let's wait for the court case. Let's wait for the court case.
Okay, great.
And personally, I don't really care whether he, she, or is or not. I don't really care.
Now, look,
and you will be proven wrong again unless there's just federal corruption.
Okay, in the fallout from your encounter with Erika Kirk, Nick Fuentes said Candace Owens is done.
Out.
What a letdown.
Oh, LOL.
Tim Pool has called you evil. He says you're motivated by the fact you were secretly in love with Charlie Kirk. Is that true?
This is such ridiculous. Like, this is what I mean when I say, like, it's like LOL Fed slop. Oh, did Tim Pool say that I was secretly in love?
Fed slop's like the new TDS almost.
With him. This is, it's so, come on, there's no substance to this. This is so ridiculous. It's by any means necessary. Come out and attack Candace. The New York Post did an article that it was honestly amazing fan fiction. They even said that we used to work at Daily Wire. I'd throw my keys at my staff, and my staff hated me. I did not drive to work a single day when I was at the Daily Wire. They had a driver take me there. So we're just now in this weird spot where they're just making things up every single day. They said that my husband had a Qatari passport, and I just ignore it. And I keep investigating because I know what it's meant to do. It's meant to distract me. I'm very aware of what these people are trying to do, and it's not working. So I don't really feel
which of your theories,
Fuentes and Tim Pool.
All right. Which of your theories when you were with Erika did she think was convincing?
Great question.
We didn't. What do you mean by that?
Well, did she think that Israel was involved? Did she think that there were French paratroopers involved? Did she think the Egyptian planes were complicit? Did she believe that Turning Point employees were involved? Which of the many theories
I wasn't. I guess.
Did she think is actually got any merit to it?
The great question by Piers. Let's see what she says. Looking to the left.
I think you're characterizing it like I sat down and tried to convince her of my theories. That wasn't the nature of the meeting that we had.
Honestly, that's what people wanted the nature of the conversation to be. They wanted the nature to be that.
I shared information with her and told her what the feds were ignoring. And these are the things I'm looking into. Obviously explained to her about the Egyptian planes and this bizarre connection to, Turning Point faith events and tours. And yeah, I mean, it was kind of like sharing the information with her. So there was nothing that.
But again, here's my problem, Candace.
So 4.5 hours, and that was it. Doesn't add up. Doesn't add up. So the things we said before, defamation or just part of the game, whatever it was, doesn't add up.
The whole thing is
everything
is like you're just asking questions, you're sharing information, you're doing this. But when I actually ask you to be specific about who do you think did what, that's where it all hits a shuddering halt. You don't know, do you? You don't actually know, anyway.
Of course, if I actually knew who shot Charlie Kirk, I would be instantly publicizing it. I'd say, I figured it out. I figured it out. That's not how an investigation works. Piers just doesn't work like that, okay? You have to follow the clues until you arrive at a conclusion. Of course, I cannot confidently state that it was, John Smith who shot Charlie Kirk from the left side. I don't know that yet.
And here's another good point, though. Candace is not privy to the things that the FBI is privy to. They have access to the information that might put some of these pieces of the puzzle together. Candace is operating without a lot of that stuff. So she can ask these questions. She can try to turn over things and see what she finds. But that's really all she can do. Like, she can't do more because she doesn't have all of the information. She only knows what the FBI and friends wants us to know and what she discovers on her own. That's it. So you're not going to be able to figure it out from that, more than likely. You can make vague accusations. You can implicate, but that's really all you can do.
I don't know that information yet. And when I do know it, I will publicize it without question. I just am pointing out the inconsistencies, the lies. He was not shot with 30-06, and he did not have a Man of Steel neck.
How do you know?
That's completely made up. Well, actually, that's going to be my show today. I do now factually know that Man of Steel thing was made up, and that never came from the surgeon's mouth. So again, we have another lie. We have another lie coming out of Turning Point USA. And put in quotation marks that lie, that it was a direct quote from the surgeon. That was made up. So yeah, I'm going to keep track of all of these lies, deliver them to the public, and allow them to surmise. I'm going to allow them to think critically while it's still legal. I know it's barely legal in the UK, and it's becoming increasingly less legal here in the United States. So I'm going to use every opportunity to ask every question.
Okay, but pre the meeting with Erika, you repeatedly questioned why we weren't being told where Charlie Kirk is buried, or even if he has been buried yet. Did you get those answers?
You have the wrong commentator who questioned that. I think that was Milo Yiannopoulos.
You've never questioned, you've never asked where Charlie's buried?
Nope. I just communicated to the people that he had a Catholic funeral mass, because people were saying I was lying about him going to a Catholic church.
And this is another thing to bring up, right? I guess they didn't talk about that. Oh, where is Charlie? Where is he buried? I guess it just never got brought up.
Church, which was another random attack that I had to endure. So I never said that people don't know where Charlie Kirk's buried. That's just the wrong commentator.
Do you know where he's been buried?
I actually genuinely never got to that question with Erika, but I do know where he's. I think the implication that Milo made, again, you'd have to ask him, was that he's not buried. No. I do know where there is a spot for him to be buried, or to be held in a mausoleum. But I never, that's just, you have the wrong person on that.
Erika was emphatic in the CBS thing that she wanted you to stop with the conspiracy theories, or maybe you've got it all right and all of this stuff is true and it's all involving the Israelis and Egypt and Turning Point in a mass conspiracy with this young kid, Tyler Robinson, brought in, and they're all involved in this dramatic murder of Charlie Kirk. Maybe let's just assume for a moment you're 100% right. But she did tell you publicly before you met to stop. What's clear is you're not going to stop. So is she okay with you now continuing to talk about your theories, or does she still want you to stop?
Well, she didn't ask me to stop. If that's the question that you're asking, is throughout that meeting,
she say, did publicly, obviously. So your response to that is what?
I'm telling you that then we had a conversation And I was not asked throughout that conversation to stop. And to the contrary, I shared information that I had, and I got information from them.
Right.
That helps.
So
me
you will
to
carry on.
Focus.
You will carry on.
Yes.
With the theories.
Yes. Until I feel confident of who killed Charlie Kirk, I will not stop investigating this.
And Erika is okay with you doing that?
I don't know how many other ways to answer your question other than saying she did not ask me or request for me to stop in person. And when we spoke about that moment, she felt that Barry Weiss was being Barry Weiss.
And again, that's a good question there by Piers, because that's what a lot of people were worried about. They're thinking, oh, Erika told her to stop. I wonder if they talked about that. Candace didn't really even mention that yesterday. But here she's actually saying now, yes, she didn't tell me to stop. She told me to continue. So again, I think the defamation thing is very likely. And they kind of muzzled her a little bit. And they said to her, Candace, you can keep on making vague accusations, but whatever you do, don't be mentioning specific people anymore. Talk about Egyptian planes, talk about other vague things, but no specifics. We don't like the specifics.
And she made no request of you whatsoever, Erika Kirk, in 4.5 hours.
Request in what sense?
About how she would like you to conduct yourself about the murder of her husband going forward.
No.
Nothing at all.
No, she didn't make a request for me to.
And again, that's interesting. So she didn't say anything. No requests, no nothing. Interesting. After she made that big hubbub on Barry Weiss's show, stop. Then 4.5 hours? Nothing. Just another thing that doesn't add up.
Conduct myself in
and
any
she
way
expressed no concern about any of the theories that you've been
I
putting
think
out.
she probably knows me through the lens of her husband, so I don't know if that would be a thing that she would have done. But no, she did not ask me to conduct myself in any way. That seems to just be coming from the media of how I should conduct myself.
Am I right in thinking that your mind has taken you to a place where you genuinely believe that Israel, Egypt, Turning Point employees, and Tyler Robinson, and potentially others, but they were all involved in the murder of Charlie Kirk?
Well, to be fair, I think we're all putting Egypt in parentheses because we kind of don't think that we have exactly a strong Egyptian lobby here in the United States. And there is a lot of historical precedent with Israel kind of using Egyptian planes or using the Egyptian narrative when they want to accomplish things. So, I mean, I just pointed out that this is an Egyptian plane, but Israel, I got tons of questions about. Yeah, I think Israel is a very good place to start when Bibi Netanyahu is just denying and just way too involved in the beginning. That was weird. Everyone felt it was weird, and they were right to feel that it was weird. And when Bibi admits that he called him 2 weeks before and invited him to Israel, like, what's that about? People are being, and also because it just happens to be that from the very beginning, Zionists don't want us investigating the Charlie Kirk assassination. So it's just, I would say, the usual suspects. You are correct that I have and sent information, and it has not been denied by the Élysée Palace, the White House, or the Pentagon, that the French Foreign Legion was on the ground that day. Again, something that I flagged to Turning Point USA, Justin Strife, that for whatever reason, the feds don't want this information, which is a bit strange, or don't seem to be interested, or maybe
so
they're
we have the
pretending
French
they're
Foreign
investigating
Legion.
it.
And I do wonder how much information Candace really brought to their attention that they didn't know. Yesterday, she had said, Erika said at first, oh yeah, I didn't tell you to stop in the beginning because I was learning from you. And in fact, that was probably a brilliant thing for her to say, to kind of try to disarm Candace. But I wonder how much of that is true. How much of it, they were really learning from Candace. I don't know.
To the list as well.
Yeah, but the French Foreign Legion is like a bandit of, what I've learned about them now is it's a bunch of different countries. It's not just French people. And yeah, that all sounds about right to me. Is there anything else I can answer?
I think we've probably covered it. It's a lot of people involved in this murder. And my guess, Candace, for what it's worth, is it'll turn out none of that is true. And that it was Tyler Robinson who, for his own politically motivated reasons, hence brandishing the bullet casings with words like anti-fascist slogans and so on. That's why he did it. he believed that he'd been led to believe Charlie Kirk was a fascist, so he had to kill him, which is a different issue about why I feel so strongly that these words shouldn't be bandied about, because in deranged young minds, it can have that effect on them. We see it time and again. But look, if it turns out that you're right and that Charlie Kirk...
And let's face it, part of this is Piers trying to help out his buddy, Trump, and the FBI trying to like get behind their narrative. There's definitely an element of that there. Even though Piers did call out Trump for what he said about Rob Reiner. But, you know, ultimately, I think he's also trying to help Trump still, too.
Was murdered by a group of people, including the French Foreign Legion, Egypt, Israel, Turning Point, Egypt, his own employees, and they were all in on this to murder Charlie Kirk. You will be proven 100% right, and I will be the first to salute your brilliant investigative journalism. But in return, if it turns...
So let's play a little game, chat. 6 months from now, what do we know? 1 year from now, what do we know? Did we know anything different? Is there anything concrete? Tyler gets convicted? Is it going to be like an Epstein situation in jail? I don't know. What do you think?
Turns out you're completely wrong, then I would expect you to come back on Uncensored and admit you were completely wrong. Is that a fair deal?
I was hoping that by the time we did this, I'd be able to do that because they showed me something that was so compelling. That didn't happen. So yeah, deal is on, as always. Between you and I, the deal is on.
Excellent. I'll add it to the list. Candace, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. We're both Christians. We have that in common. And it's always good to have you on Uncensored. I'll tell you.
And Piers and Candace, they're playing the same game. They're close in actual status level. Candace is probably more popular than Piers right now. But in terms of wealth and their like elite status, pretty similar. Pretty similar, if you ask me.
I'll say this about you. I say this to everyone. You come and do these things. You don't duck them. You don't shirk them. You don't hide away. You stand behind what you say. My only question for you, it's not for you, it's about you, is when people say to me, do you think she believes this stuff? I don't know. I don't know if you do or not. I know that Alex Jones didn't.
It's just so fun being a lone person to be attacked every second and every minute of every day that I was just like, you know what? This is so fun for me. I love it.
You're not the lone person, Candace. Ian Carroll's right there with you. And there's others. There's others out there on X too.
Love the threats of losing your job and people going after your sponsors and having to worry about your security. It's so fun. You know, it would be so easy. I would be a billionaire. I'd be on the cover of Vogue magazine if I would just say the thing, if I would just be a federal operative and tell people to trans their kids and tell them like Brigitte's like a really beautiful woman and tell them that Charlie Kirk was shot by one person on a rooftop with impeccable luck who scaled the rooftop like Spider-Man. That's the easier route in life. Unfortunately, spiritually, I can't do it. I'm just my granddad's granddaughter and he couldn't lie. I can't lie.
And imagine, what the hell would people be talking about if not for this? Would everyone be talking about Venezuela? Would people be talking about the economy, AI, crypto? Like, this has been a massive story on social media. So something to think about.
And I don't want my kids to grow up in a world where a bunch of freaks and pedophiles are in power, which is in the circumstance that we live in today. We cannot live in a world where Jeffrey Epstein is being protected by the government and Charlie Kirk is being publicly assassinated. I can't do it. I won't do it. And let the chips fall where they may.
Candace Owens, always good to have you on Uncensored. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure.
So for those who don't know, HG Tudor is doing a 10-part breakdown of Candace. It's very interesting. You learn a lot about her past, things that most people probably don't know. Let's see what else they have here. And Candace did her show today.
Into this because after yesterday's episode, we were contacted by a variety of people with information.
And time out. How about this for poetic irony or justice or whatever? I got a copyright strike for that stupid Jewish song that Candace played in the beginning. Because whoever has that song, they did a shared revenue thing with Candace and then me. And I was like, God damn it. I didn't realize that was going to be a thing. Like, you feel like you don't think that's going to be a thing, but she trolled the audience with that. And in a way, she trolled me with that too.
And it's time to state unequivocally that the steel neck quotation did not come from the surgeon. Okay, not only that, but it's odd that federal agents were, I would say, too involved at the hospital. When I tell you this story, your jaw is going to hit the floor. We also have never before seen photos of the vehicle. I know I sound like a Fed here, that Charlie was transported in to the hospital when they were trying to save his life. I'm telling you, my perspective is that all of these leads are ramping up. The reason for that is because the general public is actually not.
And so the comments did say in this video too, that car should have been impounded and used as evidence, actually. So he didn't go in an ambulance, he brought in that car. That should have been a thing. But let's read these comments before we actually go into this, because these are important. Candace, did you ask Erika why she canceled the Doge investigation that Charlie initiated before his death? A very good question. Chances are she didn't. Click if you're not a bot. Why was everyone's first call to their own wives, fathers, mothers? Why didn't anyone call 911? A good question. As soon as I heard that Dan, the FBI director, was resigning, that's exactly what I thought as well. He sees how deep the corruption is and wants nothing to do with it. Could be. Dear Candace, did you ask Erika Kirk why TPUSA is sending $1.5 million to a parking lot in Arizona? I didn't hear about that. Yeah. I think Erika and TPUSA are now off limits for Candace Owens. Well, that could be too. I used to come for the content, but now I come for the comments. Hear, hear. Did you ask Erika why she is not honoring Charlie's wishes regarding leaving the Israel cause? Now, that's a damn good question. That's a damn good question. If Candace was being good faith, that's the question you ask. And then you go back to your audience yesterday and say, I asked Erika and Turning Point, why aren't you following through on what Charlie's wishes were? He said he didn't want to be bribed by the rich Israeli donors, and he was going to be forced to leave the Israeli cause. And here you are doing the opposite of his wishes. What a damn good question that would have been. But what did we hear about it? Nothing.
Receptive to what is very clearly a military-grade psychological operation, complete with influencers and botted activity on social media. We're so let down. It's over. I'm never watching this show ever again. Candace took money. The people can see what you're doing, feds. They can see it. I can see it. And now we're gonna, gotta go max today. Welcome back to Candace. What I said on my Instagram stories, if you're not following me over on Instagram, is very true. I actually have never played chess, but I think I'm a good player. I think I'm a good chess player in life. So I've kept a lot of cards close to my chest, and truly it is because I have understood throughout this entire process that we need to separate the wheat from the chaff. Like, of course, not every single person.
Annie Duke, the professional poker player, says life is more like poker than chess, because in chess, the best player almost always wins. But in poker, there's so much luck involved that often the best player doesn't win. And so she said life is more like poker than it is chess, because the best players in life don't always win. Sometimes there's a lot of luck involved.
Is bad at Turning Point USA. We don't have every single person that's bad that works for the FBI or the NSA. There are good guys everywhere, and there are bad people everywhere. So when somebody's telling you everyone's good or everybody's bad, you should not believe that. Well, get ready, guys. Buckle up. Where do we begin? This is what I would say is clearly a federal disaster. We might even have to bring in FEMA. That's how much of a disaster this is and how much it is going to be for Kash Patel when we get through with this episode, because federal prints are all over the Charlie Kirk assassination story. Okay. There's no way to deny it at this point. Nothing they are saying makes sense. They've told us lies, misrepresentations, and I think they are the ones who are attacking people who are reasonably concluding that nothing makes sense. Okay, our intuition is telling us that something bigger is at play, and we're going to keep following that intuition and mocking us for saying that we had dreams that Charlie was betrayed, or rather mocking me. But many people actually had dreams, and they even.
And I wonder, like, if they're just letting Candace talk about this, like if there really was something, maybe they would shut her up and they'd gag her in a way. But just the fact that she's even allowed to do this to so many millions of people, that should make you pause right there. It's like, okay, so everything she's saying, they don't really have a problem with her saying, because if they did, you better believe they would shut it down.
Tell me of them all the time. It's just not going to work. You are going to come apart when I deliver these new facts to you. So yesterday, I revealed to you that I was told that Andrew Colvett was allegedly flying blind when he tweeted out the conversation that he had with the surgeon. Now, just to jog your memory, how that all came about was me doing the show and saying, oh, I saw the back footage and there was no blood. And then very quickly, which I didn't really understand why he had done this, he tweeted out that long tweet about Superman neck, and he puts this quotation in here, quote, that the surgeon said, quote, absolutely, it should have gone through. Sorry, go back to the last one. Absolutely, the bullet should have gone through, which is very normal for a high-powered, high-velocity round. I've seen wounds from this caliber many times, and they always just go through everything. This would have taken a moose or two down. An elk.
And Andrew Wilson today, like I said, he was breaking this down. And he said, you have to realize distance, angle going in, the bullets used, the age of the bullets, whether the bullet was tumbling, all of those things could also contribute as well. So some of this, it's not a cut and dry scientific experiment like they want you to think it is.
Etc. Next up, that quotation continues. It was an absolute miracle that someone else did not get killed. His bone was so healthy and the density was so impressive that he's like the Man of Steel. It should have just gone through and through. It likely would have killed those standing behind him too. And that seems strange for a lot of reasons. First off, HIPAA compliance. Why would he speak to Andrew Colvett? Also, did Andrew Colvett record it? It's a pretty long quotation. Why is it in quotations? Do you remember that verbatim? And I can tell you that it's kind of been a mess since. This is kind of the beginning of everything, right? If we're being honest, that one solitary tweet was the beginning of the, what I would call, federal mask slip. It feels like they have been feeding us slop ever since. Well,
now the only problem I have with Candace saying some of this is, it's like, imagine how dumb you have to be as the FBI to be slipping up. Like, if you truly are onto something and you're covering something up, like, are they that dumb? Are they that dumb to have this many mask slips? I don't know. What do you think?
I now feel comfortable revealing some more information for you, some that I have held on to, but which the people who gave this to me are now insisting that I reveal. Simply put, and I'm going to say allegedly here only because I did not speak directly to Dr. Lee Trotter, but I very much have verified and trust this source. Simply put, never once did Dr. Lee Trotter say that Charlie's neck was stopped. Charlie's neck stopped a 30-06 bullet. It's actually hugely embarrassing for any surgeon to have said something like that. It's hugely embarrassing also because we're being told that, like, you know, he's violating HIPAA to get this information out there in this very high stress situation. You're actually accusing him of being not a professional on top of also kind of being an idiot. And you can imagine that that's put a lot of undue stress on the surgeon's family, as many of them have been wrongly implicated in a cover-up. Like, the absurdity of such a narrative, if you're going to put something out there, there's going to be flack that comes upon the surgeon, the other doctors, the nurses. Are you involved? Did you try to get Charlie Kirk killed? Were you involved in this, in staging this? Why would you say that he ate healthy, right? And there's no doctor or surgeon that would say something like that. So to restate that, the quotation that Andrew Colvett shared on his X feed is not a direct quotation from the surgeon, like, at all.
So interesting, chat. What do you think about that? Is this like the beginnings of like backtracking of some of the things that have already been said? Is that what this is? I don't know. But yeah, it doesn't make sense for a surgeon to go put their neck excuse the pun, on the line like that by saying something like that. Doesn't make much sense. But that's what he said. That's what they quoted. But now, is this the beginning of backtracking by Candace here? What do you think?
What I was told is that what the surgeon communicated very clearly to Andrew, and yes, it is absolutely true that the surgeon, Dr. Lee Trotter, hunts, so he does have experience with bullets. What he communicated is that it was likely a frangible bullet that was used. Now, for those of you who don't hunt, maybe don't shoot, and you're not familiar with that term, frangible, like what's a frangible bullet? That refers to a specialized ammunition that is designed to disintegrate into powder upon impact with a hard surface. So it essentially reduces the risk of a ricochet. Instead, the bullet fragments, makes it safer for close range training. It's not like the traditional bullets that are created to retain mass. Now, key part there is it eliminates the risk of ricocheting. Well, Andrew also told us that the bullet did ricochet. So what we have here is a conflict of statements. We are told that Andrew Colvett was flying blind, put up this tweet, said that the bullet ricocheted downward into his stomach, whatever. And I am telling you that on the other side of this, we have people who are close to the surgeon who say he said no such thing, and rather he said that it was likely a frangible bullet. What are we to make of that discrepancy? Yo no say, Padres. But I'm going to move on because there's something else that is compelling and interesting, something that was unusual that allegedly transpired at the hospital. Now, I want to be clear that not only have I now heard this from somebody that was in the hospital, but another source unrelated to that source told me this a while ago, and I couldn't confirm it. They said a call was placed to a DC at the hospital, and this had something to do with Charlie's body. Now, because this seemed to me to be random and there was no clear way that I could verify that it took place, I kind of keep a separate box for like follow-up on that. Could be interesting later. Well, now it's interesting. It's interesting. It's a separate person is telling me that there is one thing very unusual that occurred on that day. Allegedly, Charlie gets transported to, I know I keep saying this wrong, Timpanogos Hospital. He's raced into surgery. That is confirmed. All of that is true. The conspiracies around that can be.
That's a big one too. When did she ever confirm that? So the hospital stuff's true. A lot of people were saying it wasn't true. A lot of people were saying, well, people are saying he's still alive, right? So this is interesting.
Shut down. He was raced into surgery. He did still have a pulse. And when it was determined that his life could not be saved, and after his next of kin, obviously Erika, was informed, so Erika's not in the hospital, to make that clear, something strange happened. The surgeon wanted to do what he always does, right? He wanted to clean Charlie up before his wife got to the hospital, except he was blocked.
Incorrect. Ivy, this is a very good question. The thing I don't understand is how did Andrew get permission to explain about how he died? Because usually in HIPAA law, if you're not like related to that person, you can't share information. That's why. Very good question. I don't know what the answer to that question is. But it doesn't add up, right? Like, why would he do that? Why would Andrew do that, considering those things?
By federal officers who were already at the hospital. They stopped him from being allowed to return to the operating room. This allegedly got him pretty fired up. It's never happened before. It's inappropriate. It sounds inappropriate for federal officers to say, I know you just came out of there from trying to save his life, but you're not allowed to go back in the operating room. I'm on orders. No one's allowed to access this body. And this doctor's pretty connected, been around a long time, has a lot of contacts, and is like, this is ridiculous. I'm going back in there. I want to make him presentable for his wife to get here, yada, yada. I'm paraphrasing here. You can imagine this scene. And so he doesn't take no for an answer, and he places a phone call. I am assuming, now this person did not say it was a phone call to DC, but said it was likely a phone call to someone political and somebody who was very high up, who then ordered the feds to stand down and to allow him to do what he had always done, which is to make sure that Charlie looked good.
What is this? 10-7? Israel telling them to stand down?
Good enough for his wife to see him. Kind of weird. weird because we are in manhunt hours. We're talking 2.5 hours, maybe up to 3 hours after Charlie got shot. And the feds are not just at the hospital trying to take cameras down from inside the hospital, as we learned they seized the cameras on that day, but they're also blocking the surgeon's access to an operating room. Shouldn't you be outside racing to find who the killer is? Like, what are you, what are we doing here? What are we actually doing here as a process? Why do you need to guard this body from the surgeon who tried to save his life? That doesn't make any sense. But there's more. Okay. Honestly, I think what I'm going to tell you more is
now my question would be, where did she get this new information from? Like, who's confirming all of this? Did she get it from the meeting yesterday with Erika and friends? I don't know.
Well, like I said, should not say explosive. I should say it's not explosive before you can catch your breath on the information I've just given you. I'd also like you to hear the very super interesting story of how which I will now refer to as the non-smoking gun, was actually discovered. I love the details. You know, I love details. I'm a detail-oriented person, and these ones are fun and curious, okay? So the story goes that the police officers found the gun in a wooded area. Now, immediately, we had students telling us that even that description is faux. Wooded area, no, that's actually not the right topography surrounding UVU. Well, interestingly enough, the exact place where the gun was found, which is described more like a median between two roads. I think I showed you that footage of where they found that gun.
Honestly, I'm getting the impression here that this is stuff that Turning Point and Erika has fed her to start communicating to her audience. I almost get that impression. And it would be too on the nose for Candace to say that yesterday, of course. She's not going to do that. But here she is. Her actions might be speaking here. But what do you think?
Certainly not in the woods. There's some trees and there are some bushes. Well, interestingly enough, before that gun was found, that area had already been searched. Not just by veteran police officers who told me that the way they do this is they sort of lock arms, then they kind of go, you kind of seen this in some shows, maybe that's what they did. They came up, they didn't have anything. Then they said, okay, we're only human. Let's release the bomb dogs in that exact area where ultimately the gun is going to later be discovered. The bomb dogs didn't turn up with anything. And here is why that fact alone is remarkably suspicious, according to the police officers that were involved. And I'm fascinated by this now. I love fun facts about animals. Obviously, we all know that dogs have incredible scent, right? Their sense of smell is like literally up to 100,000 times more than a human scent. Now, in case you didn't know, and I did not know this, over $19 billion has been spent on research and development of technology that can detect explosives, okay? Over $19 billion. And yet, no man-created technology comes close to conquering the scent of a dog. Essentially, what I'm saying to you is that dogs are the highest grade available technology that we have when it comes to detecting explosives. And
actually pretty cool. I like that for dogs. Hopefully AI doesn't replace dogs in this $19 billion industry.
Bomb dogs are specifically trained to detect explosive like gunpowders. That's why they have these animals at police departments. Even an untrained dog, like even just your dog, and like you're walking a dog and he's got like a scent and you're like, what's going on? And nobody smells. They can pick up a scent of a fired weapon days after it was triggered. Their nose will still pick up that scent. A bomb dog, they can smell it up to a week, right? Maybe even more because they're specifically training. And during this training process, I'm reading they'll cover something in chemicals. They'll train them. So like after it rains, obviously they're just training their scent to get stronger and stronger and stronger. After a week, after an explosive goes off or a weapon is fired, they will tell you, here it is. They'll be able to find that weapon. I'm telling you this so that you can comprehend that if you're sending out bomb dogs to find a weapon that was just recently fired like an hour ago, that's not even fun for them. That's not even interesting. That's ridiculous. You're basically saying to that dog, 1 + 1 = what? It's too easy. This is what they did. They sent these bomb dogs out. They go over to the area and they find nothing.
Well, I mean, are these dogs, are they trained to also find guns, like a fired gun and the gunpowder smell? Is that a thing? Because if that's a thing, I guess I could see why maybe they would do that.
The highest grade technology that we have finds nothing. These dogs belong to the sheriff's department in Pleasant Grove, by the way. You should know that. So seasoned officers plus the dogs crawled the area and came up dry. Until, fast forward, so many miracles in this story, fast forward to when the feds arrive after the dogs fail to the corner with you dogs, and the feds are here. The federal officers are going around and asking officers weird questions like, oh, how long have you been on the police force? And what happens then is that federal officers direct 3 police officers who I'm told between the 3 of these officers, they had less than a year and a half on the force. Okay. Like these officers are pretty spanking
Probably DEI.
brand new, just like everything else in the story. And the federal officers specifically direct them, check again over yonder, check again yonder, right over there, because I just don't trust that super high grade technology of a dog's nose that we have. And you, sir, you 3, go and see if there could be something over there. We can't trust those 100,000 times stronger noses. You're human. Take on the task. And guys, you're not going to believe me. The nose that's trained to pick up gunpowder, explosive, combustible material, they get an F. But lo and behold, these police officers, bam, there it is, the gun. We've got the weapon. Woo! There's no cheating here. We nailed it. We might as well get rid of these dogs, right? It's completely useless to have these dogs around.
Well, the question to ask is, are the dogs trained to find gunshots too? Can they smell the smell of a fired gun? If they're trained to do that, okay. If they're not trained to do that, then I can't be surprised they wouldn't find it. Now, and I guess the point she's also making is, well, the police find it right away. Isn't that suspicious? Yeah, possibly.
I have the names of the officers who were involved in that discovery. I do not intend on releasing those names at this moment in time because I'd like to try to reach out to them in earnest, and also because I also need to research them because I'm like this and I need to know who their great-grandparents are. I need to know everything about these officers. That's not the only dog in the story. Then there's Freya. Freya is a canine dog, and I am told that, and please correct me. Okay, actually please don't send me a million emails if this little factoid I get wrong, but my understanding is that the canines are different from the bomb dogs, and the canines are trained for like drugs and like can like smell a person. Okay, whatever. Freya in this story is a canine. Okay. And she is specifically the canine that sniffed out the route to the rooftop where Tyler Robinson, the Losey Center rooftop, where he allegedly took the shot. Now, in case when I tell you that, you're reasonably concluding that this means that they took the gun that the officers found, they gave it to Freya, and Freya smells the weapon and then said, here we go, and led them back to the rooftop. I want you to know that you'd be wrong, because everything in the story has to be exceptional. Everything in this story has to be different and special and unique. Actually, they didn't give Freya any object, but rather conducted something that was described to me as a condensed scent trace. So it's different. Freya, I'm told by police officers, essentially.
I don't even know what the point of this is, though. Like, why is she talking about this? What's the relevancy of this? Is this just like another rabbit hole to go down? For what?
Traced the scent from the bottom of the building where we saw a person jump off, right? And back to the top of the building. So Freya was able to conclude it's effectively like a target odor trace that the person who jumped here came from up here. I want to be clear. I am hearing this from multiple officers who were involved with the hunt, who have reached out since the very beginning and said everything was weird, everything was wrong. We feel like we were effectively being sent on like wild goose hunts, like a wild goose hunt by the feds, and the feds were sort of directing the show. That's a lot of information I just gave you. We're not even warmed up because there is one more thing that I would like to share with you before we take a brief break. Now, this is something that I cannot confirm with, I guess, the usual certainty that I have, but it feels important for me to state it because I hope that because 1 and 2 officers have been courageous, and I'm hearing the rumors, but I want to confirm. I'm hoping that somebody will stand up. Maybe the very officer that was involved in this will stand up and contact me. But I had received a tip a while ago from a few police officers, a tip that I would like to confirm, but I think it should be put out into the open. After we broke the story of the rentals, of the Toyota rentals, I gave you guys the exact description. I also gave you the plates, but that could also be not relevant because if we're dealing with feds, they change the plates, obviously. Anyways, there were some good guys in the police department who had recalled, and I did confirm that I'm speaking with people at the police at the police department at the very least, who recalled something odd that happened on that day involving a white Toyota RAV4. The story goes, obviously, everybody's eyes are peeled, looking for anything unusual, looking for the suspect on this manhunt. And there's an officer who catches a speeding car shortly after the shot is fired. And this officer is convinced that this is the killer. Like this, I'm going to be in hot pursuit of this killer. The officer pulls over the Toyota RAV4, and when the officer gets to the window, the driver of the RAV4 flashes an FBI badge. I am telling you the exact truth of it, what was communicated to me, and I would like to confirm the story because it's pretty explosive. If that is true, if Toyota RAV4 was pulled over, how do we get that? Do we have to FOIA? I don't know. And that's why I'm putting it out.
Now, to be clear, is this before or after the shooting? Is this Toyota RAV4 being pulled over before or after the shooting? If it's after, I mean, I could imagine some law enforcement folks and alphabet agency folks, they want to get involved. Oh, I'm special. Here's my badge. I want to see what's going on here. I'm special.
Out there because there may be a way to even get around. I'm assuming that officer would have had to have a camera on him. Did a federal officer get pulled over driving a Toyota RAV4? Again, this would have been shortly after the shot went off.
Wow.
So I we're probably looking within an hour. Maybe let's widen it and say within 2 hours, a Toyota RAV4, a white Toyota RAV4 was pulled over and a federal badge was flashed, letting that officer know that he or she was outranked. So,
I mean, and that happens whenever someone gets pulled over half the time, right? If you ever have known a cop, they get pulled over. What's the first thing they do? I'm a cop. Leave me alone. They could be drunk driving. Doesn't matter. They let each other go, right? They all think they're above the law. So that part that he would flash a badge, that doesn't surprise me at all. So, but what's the point of this? What's the point of these dogs? What's the point of this story here? Just to implicate more Fed presence there? Is that all this is?
there's that. And we still have more. So somehow this is just, look, it's the last week before break. We got to get it all out there. And the way that they are behaving, the craziness of how I'm being attacked is letting me know that we are dead close to something. And we're going to keep pushing. We're going to take a brief break here to throw to some of our sponsors. All right, you guys, when they double down on abortion, we know that will help heal our country, which is a simple planting streams in the world. Big tech deciding what's confirmed is going to leave the FBI. As assistant director of the FBI, he will be stepping down. Trump said that he thinks that Dan wants to get back to his show. I think Dan has probably realized how far-reaching this corruption goes. I have been wondering why Dan has been silent, I would say effectively silent on the Charlie Kirk situation. He has not been a part of the people that have been feeding us trash. And maybe his silence is actually some dignity. Like saying, I'm not going to take part in this. And he's doing maybe what Marjorie Taylor Greene did and said, this is hopelessly broken. And I feel like I'm betraying the American people, and he's going to leave. And maybe he feels like he can fight better from behind the mic. And I certainly am feeling like we are doing a lot here just by investigating this truly. And when I say we, I genuinely mean you guys back at home, because I feel like we're all kind of waking up to just how much the military controls how botted comment sections can be. I click on this person and they just created an account.
And so in Dan Bongino's defense, he gets there and then he probably realizes, and him and Cash Patel are like, oh, wait a minute. We can't do anything. Our hands are tied here a lot of times. It's bigger than us, and we have to play the game. So Cash Patel has to go on Rogan and say, oh, yes, we can't show the videos of Epstein Island. We're trying to protect the victims, which of course is BS. But before, on their shows, they would never talk like that. They'd be like hungry for the truth. But then when they're there in a position to actually do something, all of a sudden they're neutered too. So it's like the analogy, like I said, in the Lord of War movie, where the guy goes in there and talks to Nicolas Cage's character. Yep, we get it. We're trying to make you the fall guy, not us. The government can't have their hands on the gun here. Sounds like something like that's going on here too.
The war on your mind. Okay. That's a war on your mind. So sticking with this theme of federal corruption that transpired on that day, a major question, and I need to do more research on this, that in terms of like who was driving and what everybody said on the day. But what happened to the car that Charlie was driven into the hospital while he was still alive? Or better yet, what do you think should have happened to that car, or what is required to happen to a car after someone is assassinated in a car, or like is bleeding in a car and there's evidence? I would have assumed that the feds impounded the vehicle. Do we agree? That seems like every show that you watch. I used to watch 48 Hours. You got to impound the vehicle so that you can then collect more evidence. Well, the only indication of what we have learned from people that were actually in that vehicle on that day came from Frank Turek. And he does discuss with Megyn Kelly him getting his bag at the hospital after the FBI cleared the vehicle. I don't want to put words into his mouth. Let's take a listen to what Frank Turek had to say.
They roped off the vehicle that we took out of there as a crime scene. I don't know why. It wasn't part of the crime scene, really. So we couldn't get into the vehicle until the FBI cleared it.
What are your thoughts on Megyn Kelly, chat? I'm not sure about her. She's, I don't know.
And it happened that Charlie, in the back seat below him, between these two bucket seats, was my computer bag. So everything, I couldn't go anywhere. You know, my wallet was in there. I wasn't going anywhere anyway, but I had to go in and get that out. And so when they finally cleared it, I got into the car and I pulled out my bag, and draped over my bag was Charlie's necklace that had a cross and medallions on it. And I had heard they were looking for that. And so cop was like, oh, we've been looking for that. I said, I got it. So I just took it.
Okay. So he's explaining that they did say this is a crime scene. Obviously, there could be evidence in here that we need. That makes sense to me. But they allow him to grab his bag and Charlie's necklace, and he goes away. And I would have assumed that they then impounded the vehicle for further inspection. But that if I had assumed that, I would be wrong. Actually, what happened is immediately after the car was transported to it was towed to a towing facility that's just kind of really around the corner from the hospital. And then from there on Monday, they had another tow truck come and take that car so that it could get a cleaning and be immediately put up for auction. Now, this is unusual on two ends of this. I'll tell you.
And why would they do that? I mean, that's weird, right? Why would you sell the car or auction the car that's so important and is actual evidence? Like what?
Tell you what those two ends are. The first end is that this was a rental vehicle, right? And even if a crime happens in a rental vehicle, especially a brand new one that is that big, you as the owner of a rental car facility, you have an option to get that car back. You have an option, obviously, to get that car back, to get it cleaned. If you're going to get the whole thing recarpeted, that would be a tremendous loss against the company for you to just, never mind, whatever, sell it. Well, apparently And I'm saying this allegedly, the owner of the company was in California at the time. He gets a phone call and he's just like, no, never want to see this vehicle ever again at our facility. I don't want there to be any PTSD for the people that work here at the rental facility. Just like get rid of it. You could sell it and that's it. It's never coming back here. Maybe that is just kind of the good natured response. I would assume they weren't going to, haul it in with all of Charlie's blood in it. But the speed at which this vehicle was just given up effectively for auction is unusual, especially because they didn't even require insurance to come, which would make sense. We know how this works. You can't collect, even if you're going to say, whatever, I want to get rid of this vehicle. I'm telling you, my perspective is that all of these leads are ramping up. The reason for that is because the general public, like I said to you guys yesterday, and don't worry, every following 2 days, we're just going to have bombs for you guys. But I really sense there has been this ratcheting up of what I have been telling you all year. There are military bots. These are military grade bots that are online. I saw them after October 7th. I saw these military grade bots when they wanted me canceled from Australia. I just recognize the pattern of what they do. They kind of all say the same thing, and it just is meant to. And I would have assumed that they then impounded the vehicle for further inspection, but that if I had assumed that, I would be wrong. Actually, what happened is immediately after the car was transported to it was towed to a towing facility that's just kind of really around the corner from the hospital. And then from there on Monday.
And again, so if the car was sold at an auction, it means that someone has the car. Someone bought the car. So that's something to look into.
They had another tow truck come and take that car so that it could get a cleaning and be immediately put up for auction. Now, this is unusual on two ends of this. I'll tell you what those two ends are. The first end is that this was a rental vehicle, right? And even if a crime happens in a rental vehicle, especially a brand new one that is that big, you as the...
And so this is a good point here by Ongo. So that person there in the white, he was one of the first people that Candace called out. He is connected to Turning Point USA Faith. Candace has called him a liar in the past, but now she's using him as an accurate source. That doesn't really make sense. And maybe that's another thing. Seems like this is part of the script now, the part of the script of what she learned between Erika and Justin. That would add up for that.
Owner of a rental car facility, you have an option to get that car back. You have an option, obviously, to get that car back, to get it clean. If you're going to get the whole thing recarpeted, that would be a tremendous loss against the company for you to just, never mind, whatever, sell it. Well, apparently, and I'm saying this allegedly, the owner of the company was in California at the time. He gets a phone call and he's just like, no, never want to see this vehicle ever again at our facility. I don't want there to be any PTSD for the people that work here at the rental facility. Just like get rid of it. You could sell it and that's it. It's never coming back here. Maybe that is just kind of the good natured response. I would assume they weren't going to, haul it in with all of Charlie's blood in it. But the speed at which this vehicle was just given up effectively for auction is unusual, especially because they didn't even require insurance to come, which would make sense. We know how this works. You can't collect, even if you're going to say, whatever, I want to get rid of this vehicle. You're going to want to make sure that you have tons of pictures and evidence, and you got to send the insurance guys. The insurance guys have to talk about how much damage has been done to this vehicle. I don't know who has to pay for it to be fixed before it can be sold, but you're going to have to send insurance. None of that happened. Okay. Just like, poof, that's it. The feds saw it. Everything's going down at the hospital. The feds are really at this hospital, and then it's over. I find that to be very strange. I have 6 photos of the inside of that vehicle. We are on the fence about, and I don't know what you guys think in terms of YouTube and showing this, or are we going to have to put this up on the website when we drop all of the Egyptian plane logs? What do we think, guys? I'm letting you, Mark, make a decision here about whether or not, and if we do show this, is obviously like very viewer discretion advice. People have watched crime scenes on the news. Should we, what do you think? You think the one we'll show one of them that's not so gory? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think the back row is probably the best. Like, this is just so you guys know that we're not making up that we have these photos. We do. We have these photos and they tell a story. And I think it's important to share these photos with people, which I'm going to do. Investigators, when I say investigators, I mean like mommy sleuths and investigators on the ground who have been looking into this story and not accepting the Fed slop. I think it's a good thing. I think we can come out of that so you guys can see it's interesting. It is very interesting. And it tells, I think, and just more pieces can come together. I think we need to know where everybody was sitting in this car, what everybody said. I know that there have been people that have been doing that work, and I intend to partner with them to just make sure everything makes sense. Okay. Now pivoting, because what I'm really getting at and what I have been
honestly, and a lot of this stuff just seems like asides. They're just minor little spin-offs, but where do they go? They just seem like things to distract people for a little while, but they'll lead to nothing. They'll lead to not much. That's kind of the impression I'm getting.
Clear about from the very beginning. I just think the feds are implicated. I do. I just feel the feds are implicated. Everything they are doing, everything that we are learning, everything that I know tells me that they went there to cover everything up. To cover everything up, including sending U.S. Marshals on a wild goose chase. Everyone, police, everybody who's there that day says the feds were not acting right. They don't actually feel like they wanted to solve the crime, but rather to create hurdles, including Cash saying, we got him. And then it wasn't the person, oh, never mind, we made a mistake, was to stop people from actually discovering who killed Charlie Kirk in those critical hours following the shot. Like they were attempting to disrupt, actually. And I believe that. So, like I said to you guys yesterday, and don't worry, every following 2 days, we're just going to have bombs for you guys. But I really sense there has been this ratcheting up of what I have been telling you all year. There are military bots. These are military grade bots that are online. I saw them after October 7th. I saw these military grade bots when they wanted me canceled from Australia. I just recognized the pattern.
And she saw these bots in our comment section yesterday, apparently too. But also to note, I mean, Kash Patel, to give him a steel man argument, like maybe he wants to please Trump and he wants to be able to say, yep, we got him so quickly. So that's more of like a steel man or a very charitable interpretation of what he's done. The uncharitable, of course, is no, it's a deception. It's for manipulation. It's to deceive you. Look over here. Which one is it?
Of what they do, they kind of all say the same thing, and it just is meant to get into your psyche. But we recognized this increase in this botted activity after we started speaking about Fort Huachuca. Talked about Fort Huachuca. We talked about, this guy. He's convinced that he saw Brian Harpole, and we start talking about the Egyptian planes. All of this is on the same day. We're getting a picture, and that felt really relevant, that he believes he stumbled upon this, all hands on deck final meeting the day before. And initially people thought, man, I think maybe somebody's pulling Candace. And then we were able to verify his story. People that are currently stationed there. Well, I want to now, and this is a longer clip, but I think it's important because we went through trying to point to you guys the fact that there is this weird...
I don't know, chat. It seems like something's off. It seems like a little bit of the excitement and passion is gone now or something. And I don't know. I don't know what to make of that. I just don't think it's a coincidence that this comes after that meeting with Erika.
Plane activity going to that base. I want to now play this longer clip of Baron Coleman. He did just a really great video going through and helping people to understand what it means when you see that SAM call sign on a plane that is flying, particularly from Andrews outside of DC. And I'm going to play this longer clip of Baron Coleman and hope he doesn't hit me for stealing his content. Take a listen.
Well, tonight I can confirm that following Candace's show last night, I started some research, and what I found floored me. I don't know who contacted Candace or whether he's credible, but I do know this. If that man or anyone else is running an op on Candace and trying to trap her into a story that doesn't add up, ultimately to destroy her reputation, they planted a key piece of evidence into the story that lends a lot of credibility to what he said. That key piece of evidence is a jet that's used exclusively by very few people. And those people are presidential family members, cabinet officials, and military generals at the Pentagon, such as the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And that jet was present at the location of the supposedly high-level meeting the day before Charlie was killed. I was watching Candace Owens this afternoon, so I know she covered the presence of the jet. I'm going to go further with that story, but I'll recap for those who aren't aware of the story, and I'll add considerable detail that she did not report. The flight was a special air mission flight. The United States Air Force Special Air Mission exists to provide safe and secure transport to our country's highest-ranking individuals. Think president, vice president, presidential and vice presidential family members, cabinet members, occasionally congressional delegations. That particular jet was present at the location of this alleged meeting on the morning of September 9th, one day before the neutralization of Charlie Kirk. And that jet had recently flown, for example, President Trump's family back from their summer home in Bedminster, New Jersey. I'll show you that in a minute. That flight was after the Independence Day holiday. So this is an important jet. I'm going to give you a quick breakdown of what are known SAM call signs, SAM, Special Air Mission call signs, because it's going to be important as we work our way through the flight logs of this jet. A Special Air Mission call sign is a designation for airlift missions carrying the president, vice president, first lady, cabinet secretaries, or other VIPs designated by the White House. When the president is on board, the radio call sign instantly becomes Air Force One. But the telephonic ATC call sign on the flight plans and on radar scopes is filed as SAM number. We'll talk about that in a second. When the vice president is on board, the aircraft becomes Air Force Two. But again, the filed call sign is normally SAM number. The same SAM call sign series is used for other cabinet members, like Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, and the First Lady when they travel on jets. And sometimes you'll see a rare call sign, very rare call sign. It's SAM 000. Sometimes you'll see a 001 or a 002. But when you see zeros leading the call sign, particularly 000, that call sign is highly sensitive. It's when the White House or the U.S. Air Force want to be deliberately vague about the exact passenger manifest. On August 25th, 2025, this is 15, 16 days before Charlie Kirk was killed, there was a flight on this jet from D.C. to Colorado Springs with that important and rarely used call sign, SAM 000. Whoever flew under this incredibly highly sensitive call sign, SAM 000, on August 25, flew from Joint Base Andrews to Colorado Springs, home of the 10th Special Forces Group. It stayed in Colorado Springs for 3 hours, and then it flew to Las Vegas, arriving there at 4:48 p.m. local time. Las Vegas, you'll recall, is the home of FBI Director Kash Patel.
Okay, so he's just delivering the facts. There's nothing here. There's no innuendo there. Later on, he's trying to just think while it's still legal, I guess. And he's like, well, we don't know where JD Vance was on this day. I can confirm I was able to dig through a lot and find JD Vance was in DC. This is not Trump. This is not JD Vance. So that allows us to come inward and try to figure out who this Sam, very big Sam, on the special air mission was. Okay. He mentions there Kash Patel. Obviously, we don't have at our fingertips Kash Patel's schedule, but it is intriguing that this flight, as he says, goes into Las Vegas. And we're going to now show you that flight path, bring that up. And I'm going to also tell you why that August 25th date is particularly interesting when I pack it into my neat little timeline. Now, because we are looking at data and time zones, I'm going to bring in Mark to explain that August 25th trip and how the call signs change, which is even more fascinating.
Thank you for using the preferred term for this.
Mark explain. Candace has white people humor.
Mark explaining. So on August 25th, let me make this full screen so everyone can see it better. So on August 25th, it flies into Las Vegas, lands at 4:48 p.m. local time as SAM 000. Then on the following day, the 26th, it leaves Las Vegas as a reach flight 658, leaving at 3:14 p.m. You see the dash at the end there that shows that the transponder data was missing before it lands in Colorado Springs, which you can see on the map here. Let me scroll back down, and you can see that it lands there at an unknown time because of that data discrepancy. Then it takes off as a SAM 658 flight back to Joint Base Andrews in DC.
Okay. And so when you see that, when you see the call sign changing from an RCH to a SAM, is it fair for me to say that this means that this was somebody who was important and then there was somebody who was extremely important who either got on or got off, SAM being that super, super VIP, which Baron Coleman just explained? Is that a fair description?
I'd say so. The special air mission designation is usually when there's very high ranking or very important people on board. Reach is kind of like there's nobodies on board. I don't want to say nobodies, but someone who doesn't rise to that level. And then the other call sign we've seen is Venus, which is a designator for an empty flight, except for the pilots.
Okay. So going back to that, look, just so you guys can see that, looking at that August 25th date. So we're seeing that the individual flies in to Colorado Springs. Now, why is this date interesting? Well, we're going to pop into the timeline and I'm going to remind you first and foremost that Brian Harpole, when he sits down with Sean Ryan, tells us that they began preparations for the UVU event. And I'm bringing up Brian Harpole, of course, because our eyewitness told us that he saw Brian Harpole. He's convinced he saw Brian Harpole walking out of this big wig meeting on the 9th. Now, I can't confirm what he saw, but I can look into things that Brian Harpole has said to the public.
And to be clear, who was she even speculating was on the flight? Not J.D. Vance, not Trump because it wasn't Air Force One, but who? Who is she speculating? Maybe I missed it.
Like, since things have transpired, and he particularly points out this date of August 24th of having been when they prepared for UVU. Take a listen to Brian Harpole in his own words on Sean Ryan.
How many days prior were you guys there?
We generally, the permitting process and all that goes on behind the scenes. And then there's a questionnaires that are filled out that we used to, there was a lot of busy work. And then so, you know, kind of like in the military, what you did, we create forms that, hey, let's get this information up front. Mm-hmm. And so that we have a duplication process so that we can confirm it. And so
read cycle.
Here's the thing. There could be 100 reasons why that this important flight goes out there, you know, doesn't have to be anything. Keep on clicking.
Obviously, we don't have at our fingertips Kash Patel's schedule, but it is intriguing that this flight, as he says, goes into Las Vegas. And we're going to now show you that flight path, bring that up. And I'm going to also tell you why that August 25th date is particularly interesting when I pack it into my neat little timeline. Now,
takes off as a very important people on board
for the UVU event. And I'm bringing up Brian Harpole, of course, because our eyewitness told us that he saw Brian Harpole. He's convinced he saw Brian Harpole walking out of this big wig meeting on the 9th. Now, I can't confirm what he saw, but I can look into things that Brian Harpole has said to the public since things have transpired. And he particularly points out this date of August 24th of having been when they prepared for UVU. Take a listen to Brian Harpole in his own words on Sean Ryan.
How many days prior were you guys there?
We generally, the permitting process and all that goes on behind the scenes. And then there's a questionnaires that are filled out that we used to, there was a lot of busy work. And then so, you know, kind of like in the military.
And some of this just seems like grasping at straws to me. Like, this could mean anything. This could mean anything.
What you did, we create forms that, hey, let's get this information up front. Mm-hmm. And so that we have a duplication process so that we can confirm it. And so we started our first, before that one, the 24th of the month prior. And so, and that was with the hard conversations, meetings.
You started that on the 24th?
Mm-hmm. Right. And we
That's
do
2 weeks.
At
really?
least. No, well, it started before that with the intelligence gathering and all that. But the hard conversations, the sharing of information, the conference calls, the data sheets, and we put that in a timeline on an app so that this all goes up and every guy that's on that job can see all the intel that comes in. It's a decentralized command model for the company. And so anybody can make command decisions for the betterment of the client or the team. And so everything goes on that app. And so when I get it, they get it. And when whoever's gathering that intel, it gets it. There's no hold, there's no power hold on it. And so that first information came in on the 24th, and then the information share starts.
Now, to be extra clear, I am not suggesting that Brian Harpole, obviously he's not going to be Sam, or is he going to be RCH, but I'm just noting that he is saying that the 24th is when they began this process of intel gathering for the UVU event. It also happens to be the exact date that Operation Valhalla Strike begins between civilians and the military. It happened on August 24th and ended on August 27th. I'm going to show you this now on the timelines so that you can see that. So then we have the very next day on the 25th, we have this very important character who decides to fly over to Colorado Springs. And then that important character flies into Las Vegas. Presumably he departs off of the plane. He or she, I'm going to go with he here. I don't know why. I feel like that's right. Is going to get off of the plane in Las Vegas, and suddenly that flight is going to be an RCH flight. Okay, so someone less important than our initial Sam. I find that to be very interesting, and I find it to be compelling. And when I said this to Harry and said, is it possible that this could have been like a high-ranking Fed? He said, yeah, it was pretty clear that they were trying to block him. This is hence them freaking out from seeing who was coming out of that meeting. That was the hustle. That's what they were fearful of. He said that there was an undercover Fed, or he said it could have been an undercover Secret Serviceman. He was, like I had this many 06s, lieutenant colonels, signifies to be that this is like a Pentagon level meeting. Everything he has said is checked out. I am telling you, we have multiple emails from people that are currently stationed there, and they have made it clear to me that, Candace, I know you don't know anything about the military, but you should know, particularly regarding Fort Huachuca, it is an intelligence base. It's not where you're going to scramble jets off of after a terrorist attack. This is where they train people that are in the intelligence community for covert missions. That is why this is significant. They confirmed that building that he said, this guy really does just have the best or work luck ever, and just gets out of his 25-year-long NDA and stumbles into another, what could be, we're keeping this open, another federal operation. And so I think it's important, and I have hesitated to do this for a different reason. I think we need to allow this man to tell a story and to explain who it is that he believes that he saw that day.
And what did I say yesterday? You got to think, what is she not talking about right now? All of these other theories, what are they? They're not involved Turning Point. They're Fed, bomb dogs, this plane. But what are they not? They're not talking about Turning Point. So there's always subtext. You got to like lift underneath the veil. And what is she not talking about? What people don't talk about can speak way more loudly than what they are talking about. Remember that.
Exactly what he believes happened, since everything thus far that he has told me has checked out. I find him to be incredibly, or I should just say, I find him to be actually quite credible. He's very credible, and he's very sincere, and I think it helps. I don't want to be the middle person. I don't want to be the middleman and tell you this guy's credible. I want you guys to feel the same way when he walked through what happened and how he was questioned and what his sense was of why it was happening. I want you to recognize his experience. I've reached out to him and I've said, look, we've got this last week on the show. Do you want to come on and tell your story? And he has said yes. And obviously, I think that we need to learn more about Brian Harpole's whereabouts. And I can tell you that I now know exactly which flight he was on when he came back from Tokyo. That was the thing that I had wrong. I said, oh, well, Tokyo had to have happened at the same time. I was wrong, obviously, because you gain so much time coming back. You essentially fly backwards in time. He actually lands into Los Angeles on a direct flight from Tokyo, landing into Los Angeles at 6:45 p.m. on the 7th, before continuing down to Dallas, getting there very early into Dallas, very early morning on the 8th. It is possible for Brian Harpole to be able to make that meeting in Fort Huachuca. It is just possible. So we are going to keep prodding this particular narrative because, like I said, I sense a panic here that is very real. And I've never seen this kind of a sustained psychological attack on my character, meaning they are now quite literally engaged in fan fiction. They're just making stuff up every day. I wake up and I go, I don't even know what this is about. None of this is true. And I've realized it's because they want to deplete our energy. They want to have our resources go to fighting stupid stuff. And we're sitting here and responding to every tit for tat. And we're not focusing on timelines and delivering misinformation and reaching out. We only should be spending our time on the Egyptian plains and what happened on Fort Huachuca base. Nothing else. Obviously, other stuff matters. If you have information about what happened on September 10th, it matters. But this is where their panic is. These two things, it's very clear this is where their panic is. And I almost just finished it's just one more plane, SUBTV, that had the longest of flight logs for the Egyptian planes. I just wanted to get the finishing touches on that before we put it onto our website. But that is going to be, I know I told you we're going to do that today, but we're going to bump that until tomorrow, because I do feel confident in stating that those Egyptian planes are linked to Israel, and that fully explains the mass freak out. So we have, well, big days coming up ahead of us, guys. We're going to have this guy give you his testimony, and it's very controversial, but it is the truth and we must follow it. And we are also going to make that accessible for you. Maybe I can even get it up tonight on CandaceOwens.com. And I also think that I should share the pictures of the inside.
And honestly, chat, I think there's something to her not talking about TP right now. Noticed when she was on Piers, when did she get the most upset? When was she the most defensive? When anything involving TP came up. Mikey, call logs, all of that. That's when she was most upset. And again, what does this sound like? Well, Candace, if you talk about TP much more, we're going to sue you. Very well could be. Or maybe worse, right? Maybe worse. I'm not putting that past anyone.
Of the car to the people who have been investigating that and have felt that things were real. And we'll just take a brief pause here before I answer some of your questions and comments. All right, question for you. Do you owe back taxes, or maybe you've not filed your taxes in years? Well, if that's you, now is the time to resolve your tax matters. With the national conversation around abolishing the income tax system, the IRS is fighting back and proving that it's here to stay by becoming more aggressive than they've ever been. They're sending out more collection notices, filing more tax liens, and collecting billions more than they had in recent years. The IRS can take your wages, bank accounts, Social Security, retirement. They can even take your home. If you owe or you have not filed, it's not a question of if the IRS will act. It's actually a matter of when. Finest, no cracking, just rich moisture. AMI skincare. I'm looking in the live chat right now on YouTube, and people are commenting about how X is almost unbearable because it's so botted, and everybody's just saying the same thing. I wish we could help them with these psychological operations. It's so obvious when it just looks like talking points. Like a million people were suddenly wanting to say the same thing. She's sold out. Her energy is off. And then when you see like Tim Pool and Nick Fuentes, Candace is over. She's over. It's finished. It just makes it very obvious to the public. Like you could be more sophisticated at these operations. Whoever's running them.
So my opinion about Piers Morgan real quick. He is definitely not to be trusted. He is bought and paid for. And he's wily. Like, he's smart. So every time he plays dumb, he knows exactly what he's doing. Every time he doesn't play dumb, he knows exactly what he's doing. And he has ulterior motives with everything that he does. So Piers just isn't to be trusted. I think the only reason why he was so hard on Candace, he probably wants to help someone that he knows. Maybe he wants to help Trump, just quiet it down a little bit. I don't know what it is, but there was a reason why I think he was kind of hard on Candace today. And perhaps he's always been hard on Candace, right? He was hard on her about the Macron thing too.
Probably just needs to be replaced. You know, bring me in. I'll tell you, like, oh, a little too much. You got to crank it down a tiny bit before people start to trip in and recognize that these are military bots. And by the way, how long have I been telling you on this show? Well, everybody was loving Elon Musk. I said Elon Musk handed over X to the military. I've been talking about military bots forever, and I'm glad that people are starting to see it. It's just the reality is freeing the bird by putting it onto perhaps an intelligence base. I don't know, but it's frustrating. It is frustrating because it doesn't allow us to be able to communicate with one another when we're dealing with like bot farms. They're effectively, think about it, they're like soldiers. They're bot soldiers that work online, and the target is always us. But I feel like we're winning. I don't know. I'm incredibly optimistic. Speaking of which, number one comment from yesterday's episode is transparency is never found in private meetings. That's where deals are made. Well, that was my only option. I'm always willing to have a transparent conversation. You can put that comment, you can slap that comment under.
Hey, courageous of her to pull that comment up. I give her credit for that, because that's not a comment she probably liked reading.
Turning Point USA episode, not here. I am still willing to talk to anybody. If they wanted to bring the temperature down, to have a private meeting, that is totally on them. If they'd like me to come back to have a more transparent discussion, I would go on Charlie Kirk's show. You guys can ask me any question. I mean, you guys know how I am. I prefer to just communicate everything. It's just, I just feel like it's better. You just feel better. This person writes, "Go Max, beautiful. We all want to know the truth, but we are praying for your safety just as hard." Yes, we also received a ton of emails of people asking us, what are you doing about security? Can we help you with security? We did actually create, for people who don't want to maybe buy our awesome gear, we have tons of awesome kit that you can get on the website. But if you'd like to just give a gift to support our security and what we're doing, you now have that option. You can go to CandaceOwens.com/support. And these are obviously very serious conversations that we are having, because Charlie just got assassinated in broad daylight. And I feel like everyone is sort of signaling that they want me and Tucker. Like, when you don't want to be name checked with Bibi Netanyahu, and they are just growing increasingly volatile in this rhetoric of what they want done to people who don't stand with Israel. It's very terrifying, but at the same time, I know that it's necessary for people to recognize how greatly evil these Zionists are. Covering up, attacking people for trying to get to the truth, attacking their reputation, attacking their families. And I think these people are very dangerous. I want to be clear. I think these are the children of Bolsheviks that are in this country. These are our Trotskyites, and they have the same methods, the same psychological methods. That's why I say get your children out of these schools. They are run with a Soviet methodology. Anyways, also, guys, if you like to support the show and in a really fun way, you can go and buy my book. I'm telling you, you're going to love it. It's I was told by a New York Magazine person, it's laugh out loud funny without even trying. Like, they were like, "Did you intend for the book to be so funny?" I was like, "No, feminism just is funny reflectively." And you reflect on feminism and the things that we've done as a society. It gets very hilarious. You guys can buy that at makehimasandwich.com, or you can just throw it into your Amazon cart for the.
And I guess, I mean, if she doesn't want to make it seem like she's doing it for clicks, okay. But it would have been a massively popular social media event if that thing was recorded. And I have a tough time believing that they would willingly not record that, especially if you're Candace. Like, this is what everyone's been waiting for. Ask those tough questions. Let them rip. See what they say.
Christmas season. Signed copies are available at CandaceOwens.com only. Okay, back to your comments. This person writes, "Operation Mockingbird, everything is not what it seems. Piers Morgan is playing stupid when he eats the Fed slop of JFK. Oh yeah, I did sit down with Piers Morgan this morning. And I think this is just me. This is me and Piers Morgan. This is our thing. Like, at the end of every year, he has me on the show. And he's like, "You're crazy. You're ridiculous. This is nonsense. This, of course, didn't happen." But he peaked when he said, maybe JFK really was just shot by Lee Oswald Harvey. And I was calling him out on this strategy of saying, "Well, you said the Egyptian planes, then you implied Turning Point USA." Yes, in a grand conspiracy, by the way, it's going to be multifaceted. There's going to be multiple layers of people that are covering it up, people that were in on the plotting, people that were incentivized by money to keep their mouth shut after. There's varying degrees of guilt. And of course, and when it comes to JFK, you've got like the mafia involved. There were Cubans that were involved. There was JFK. I'm sorry, LBJ that was involved. APAC implied, obviously, or whatever their name was before they became APAC. They changed their name after. So that strategy of pretending, unless you say it's one person with a gun, then it can't be true, is an absolute nonsense. It defies common sense. And we have common sense. This person says, "If I ever catch a bullet, I'd rather have one friend ask 1,000 questions and get half of it wrong than have 1,000 friends who don't even ask one question." That is so well said. I think about this often. All of the people that Charlie platformed, that he helped out, what are they doing? They're spending time attacking me for asking questions, not even able to say what I got wrong. And that was what was tremendously alleviating, in sitting down and having them acknowledge that these lies were real. despite the fact that it feels like for months, 3 months, we were just being gaslit. It's like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. Candace is just crazy. I don't know why she's saying this. And I'm saying it because you shouldn't tell lies, especially after the biggest political assassination since JFK and RFK. Like, we're going to wonder why they're telling these lies. Op Station writes, here is the money, Piers. Yeah, he's always betting me, never pays up. I mean, he still thinks that Brigitte Macron is a woman who just doesn't want to release any photos of 30 years. Just really hates the cameras and just, oh yeah, I know I have all these kids I raised them. I was pregnant and they were born in birthdays, but I just don't want to release any pictures of myself for 30 plus years. I mean, come on. It's such a nonsense, guys. Get real. Jake Riley writes, with all of the evidence that you found, will you eventually give over your evidence to be used in court? If not, how do you see the value in continuing to investigate if it won't be used effectively? Of course I would hand it over. Of course. Why would I? What was it just for me? They're the ones that are acting like it doesn't even exist. Hey, I said, Cash, I have evidence the French Legion was on the ground that day. Has Cash reached back out? And I say Cash, I mean, I reached out to the FBI.
And that would be interesting to see if the FBI actually gets information from her, or they don't want anything to do with it, right? And what would be the reason they don't want anything to do with it? Well, it could be two reasons. One reason would be they just want it hidden, or two, they just don't think it's relevant. Which one would it be?
Not specifically to Cash, nothing, but he's answered by not answering on Megyn Kelly. They're not interested. They're not interested, in my view, because they're implicated. The feds are implicated in this 1,000 different ways in what they didn't do on that day. And this isn't just my opinion. That's what I want to make clear. It's not just Candace ranting and saying this. This is actually what the public believes as well. This is what the lack of evidence shows and reveals to the public. This is what the police officers that were there that day believe. Everybody that is involved on every layer is saying nothing makes sense in terms of what happened on that day, except for influencers. Yeah, I hope you're feeling influenced to be an idiot because they've got something for you. Derpy Derp writes, please don't dismiss your supporters as bots. Everyone sees that Erika acts suspicious all the time and you are dismissing that. Why? Mikey's behavior is the most damning evidence of all. I have never dismissed. That was not what we were speaking about. I was saying when people were being like, she sold out, she took money. That was obviously, it was just being so said over and over again. And it just defied reality of anything that I said yesterday. It was 4.5 hour meeting. I have an hour to just kind of tell you what was said. I am absolutely not dismissing Mikey's behavior. I gave you what was given to me. That's what you wanted. What's their excuse? This is their excuse. I'm being transparent with you and telling you this is what was given to me. I find it remarkably suspicious that no one has mentioned, no one felt fit to mention that it was a three-way call. It makes Blake Neff's story especially weird because he makes it seem like they have this moment. He's got a quivering lip and he looks at him and he says, I have to call Erika. But why would he say that to Blake Neff if he's on the phone with his wife? It actually leads to more questions, right? It leads to more questions. So, and I've heard everything that you guys have said about Erika. I have responded to you guys and I've said to you, when Erika tells a lie, I am going to reply to that lie. And that is exactly what happened when she went on her PR blitz and she said that Charlie didn't text anybody. The first thing I did is I said, that's not right. Everything that is said that is not true, I'm going to hit back at. That's just where I'm at. So keep it honest and you don't have an enemy of me.
It sounds like what they said to her was, you can talk about some of the things that you talked about before, but nothing new. Nothing new about Turning Point, please.
Corey writes, I missed this person. Donna writes, prayers answered. Dan Bongino stepped down. Candace and Dan should work together, maybe a few shows together. I wonder what he's going to be allowed to say. I'm going to assume he had to have signed a very extensive NDA, maybe 25 years long. And I'm hopeful he'll violate it because I think he's stepping down for a reason. I think his soul was being compromised with the Charlie Kirk situation because Charlie Kirk was a friend of Dan Bongino's. He was also a friend of Kash Patel's, and he seems to just be pretty soulless at this moment. And I would like to know what his schedule was, if we can place Kash Patel, if you guys can help place Kash Patel on the 9th, if you guys can help place Kash Patel on August 25th, so that we can say, just like I did when Barron, I think very responsibly said, where was Donald Trump? Where was JD Vance? I found JD Vance with Donald Trump at a restaurant that evening. in DC. I think it was about like 6 o'clock. They were photographed. And so same, I would like to be able to say where Kash Patel was. And I would like to find out who that Sam was on the plane, because as you will learn, and I'm going to jump off here after this, but as you will learn in the near future, and one of the congressmen that our Harry, his old name Harry, I keep almost saying his new name, which he's going to be open about anyways, but that he believes he saw coming out of that meeting did happen to be a Las Vegas congressman. So I'm thinking, okay, was he then, when it turned back to Reach, was he dropping off somebody? Is that how they know each other? Is it Las Vegas? Again, I can't confirm that because these aren't my eyes. So you're going to have to hear it direct from him and see whether you find him to be credible or not. Anyways, you guys, that's it for today. Pretty explosive episode. We will see you tomorrow.
That wasn't really an explosive episode in any way. I think the vibe's different. She seems a little bit more muzzled and neutered. I don't think she's going to lie, but I can't deny something seems different. It's different. And the obvious thing to point to is that Turning Point USA meeting. And it's interesting to me that Candace didn't want to have that recorded. That doesn't add up to me. Like, why not? You've done the whole thing this whole time. Why now? Why would you not now? You've recorded everything since the assassination. Why not just give us what we want now? Doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. But yes, the narcissistic smirk is a thing. Ian Carroll certainly has it. And Andrew Wilson was breaking down his video where Ian Carroll was responding to Nick Fuentes. And Andrew was giving Ian a hard time. I'm not sure, chat, if you would like Andrew's explanation, because it's actually kind of similar to Nick's explanation. But Andrew's a good debater. I'll give him that. I called him out there. I called him out for his silly reaction to the feminist girl when the feminist girl said something that was true. That was ridiculous of Andrew to get that bent out of shape about that. But often, Andrew argues pretty soundly and he makes some good points. He's a good debater. So that's something to pay attention to with Andrew Wilson. But we'll see. We'll see how things unfold here, but things are different now. I think without question, things are different. But time will tell, as always. But yeah, definitely check out the interviews that I do. People like Dr. Peter Salerno. I've interviewed him several times. Dr. George Simon, the author of Character Disturbance and In Sheep's Clothing. I've interviewed H.D. Tudor a couple times. He's done a breakdown on Erika Kirk. He's done a breakdown on Candace Owens now too. A lot of good content to check out. Thank you, Bess. I'm glad you found me. Wives don't normally inherit the position of CEO from husbands in real life. Yeah, I don't think it was a good decision for Turning Point USA at all to make her the CEO. She's not well spoken enough. She's so awkward and clunky. It's painful to listen to. Like when you were seeing her speak at the schools, what the hell, the Mississippi, the Old Miss School, and then the Memorial, it was hard to stomach. It was hard to stomach. It really was. I don't think it's doing her any favors when she speaks and goes on these interviews. And if I were them, I would replace her with somebody else. I mean, I guess now maybe the people that really like them still would be mad if they canned Erika and say, oh, that's a slap in the face to Charlie. I don't know. It was a bad decision, if you ask me. I don't think they should have done it. I think, why doesn't she want to stay home with her kids right now anyway? They just lost their father. What the hell's wrong with you? Like, it just doesn't add up. Something doesn't add up with it to me. You'd think she'd want to be with her kids, but she doesn't. That's weird. Whatever you think, that is a little off. Especially for a traditional woman like Erika, by the way. Traditional, right? That's what that's supposed to be. They're supposed to be traditional. It's a patriarchal organization to its core. I don't know why the thought of a woman would be a good idea. I agree, Ongo. That doesn't make sense to me. No, she doesn't have time for that, unfortunately, for her kids. I don't like it. I think that's probably what would be better. Because imagine if Erika wasn't there, like a lot of the stuff that Candace has been talking about, there's not as much ammunition if Erika isn't there. Like Erika and her like way of speaking and all this has added a lot of fuel to the fire. It just has. But anyway, that's about it for tonight. We'll see what happens tomorrow night. I might break down a Rob Reiner and his son's interview. I'm hearing some wild stories about that too. People starting to say some wild stuff about it. And I don't know. I don't know what I think about that yet either. Well, yes, she's a businesswoman now. I think Erika at best is just super awkward and clunky and perhaps narcissistic and likes the attention. I don't say full-blown narcissist, but I do say narcissistic. And it's evident in her behavior. She likes all this attention. And no one knew who she was before Charlie died, but now everyone knows who she is. She's got to be in the top 3 most Googled people in the world since September 10th. It has to be. And yeah, she loves the spotlight, of course. Narcissistic people love the spotlight. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. High-level witch. She could be. She doesn't seem charismatic enough to be a witch, though. Like, she's a very uncharismatic witch. But all right, everybody. I will see you all tomorrow night. Thanks for supporting the chat.